Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another exciting evening of intense racing action in the one and only League Zero Formula Series, presented to you by INCA Salsa and hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're back for another round of racing action in Season 17 of the Open Wheel Racing Series. We're here today for round 8 of 9, here's the penultimate round, and we have made our way all the way back to the US of A for none other than the Circuit of the Americas. Opened only in 2012, designed by Herman Tilke, this is the country's first purpose-built Formula 1 racing circuit. Indeed, aimed at the revival of Formula 1 in the United States of America after the dismal day that was the Indianapolis 2006 Grand Prix, well, this is a circuit that borrows a little bit from all circuits around the world in order to be able to create a circuit which many would argue is either one you love or one you hate. For those who hate it, they find it's too much copy-paste from other circuits around the globe, including the likes of Silverstone, Hockenheimring, Bahrain, and the Indian GP circuit, whereas I absolutely love it for the fact it has all those elements mashed together to create an absolute titan of a 3.42 mile 20 corner circuit, and that's before you consider the fact it also has some originality of its own. In terms of its originality, we'll turn on 1, the absolutely huge run up the hill towards Big Red, as our drivers make the way there from the start finish line. Alternatively, the combination of corners that lead on to the back stretch, whereby this circuit does of course have the Herman Tilke staple, which is the 1 kilometre back straight, but on top of that as well it has a very wide open racing surface, and whereby it gets wider and wider as you go towards the corner apex in order to offer as many overtaking opportunities as humanly possible. But who exactly will be able to seize upon those opportunities? Who exactly will be able to lead the way, leaving the circuit of the World Championships today and head into our season finale on a high? That's exactly what we're here to find out in this post-round broadcast from circuit side. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this broadcast as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch up all the racing action from the League Zero Formula Series. And of course that is none other on YouTube at youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning there on a weekly basis. And hello to you guys and girls. In the content if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all this racing action as if it were live. And we should point out the racing action you are seeing is not live. It occurred as of yesterday on what was Thursday the 26th of February 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Friday the 27th of February. That means we do not know what is going on currently in the practice session until we see it happen. Now in the upcoming qualifying session, alternatively are 2 races, and that's going to keep it as close as humanly possible to that raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in. But talking of our times, in terms of Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5, we can see on our schedule for today in approximately what will be about 12 to 13 minutes time, we're making our way into our qualifying session at 9:15, 15 minutes in duration, all drivers out of the circuit looking to go for pole position, after which we'll make the way to the grid for our first of our 2 races. Our first, of course, will be the 8-lap sprint race, due to get underway at 9:30 this evening, and then we'll take a brief breather before returning at approximately 9:45 for the 24-lap feature race, where it'll be 3 times the distance and 3 times the amount of strategy that our drivers will need to work out, so there'll be that all-important pit stop, as well as needing to know exactly when to push and when to play it safe. And definitely the COTA circuit, as it's abbreviated to, is a circuit where you really need to try and find the balance, because it's not an easy circuit on car or tyre or driver and machine. But without further ado, let's make our way into this round then and give you a recap of what exactly has happened over the first 7 rounds of the championship, particularly what happened last time out in Spain at the circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia. So as we take our proverbial trip back in time and look to our calendar, we can see last time out on the 19th of February, we were at the Spanish circuit. Racing around his historic layout, the closest to the modern Formula 1 circuit with the constant revisions of the Spanish circuit, what we got to see there in round number 7 was plenty of pain in Spain for none other than Finley Fitzsimmons, the championship leader who made his way to the circuit, only to find out once he got in the car in practice, there were technical issues with the car, and those technical issues blighted him through qualifying and into the races. He never made it out into the circuit to turn a lap in anger, and therefore Finley Fitzsimmons' championship lead has been completely slashed to 0, and you'll see exactly what that means in the Drivers' Championship very shortly when we do show you the standings. And with Adam Merchant not on the grid either, not able to make the trip to Spain, therefore what it meant was it was a golden opportunity for the DDK Racing team pair of Elliot Court and Elliot Rolls to be able to lay down their markers, but instead it wasn't quite perfection they were able to achieve, and we did see a win for both drivers, with what was Elliot Court taking victory in the sprint and Elliot Rolls taking victory in the feature. But look under the surface and you'll see it wasn't the greatest of days for them either. Because whilst Elliot Court absolutely dominated qualifying in Spain, taking pole position by almost 7 tenths over the rest of the field, it was pressure that was put on him by Fabian Sanchez into turn 1 in the opening race that would set a bit of a theme. There had always been an undercurrent of pressure on the DDK Racing team. However, Court was able to hold on to take victory in race number 1, gradually gapping Sanchez, with Leo Domar completing that podium. Whereas in the feature race, well, things got entirely turned upside down. Because first, Elliott Rolls, who had a nightmare start to his race number 1, was able to recover to 6th and therefore was able to start on pole position for the feature race. And after starting on pole, he controlled the race from lights out to checker flag. However, whilst Fabian Sanchez was able to come through the field and finish second and become Mr. Second Place in Spain, it was not the way that Elliott Court wanted it to go, because he was chasing down Fabian Sanchez as they both made the way into the pit lane, when it was a bit of a concertina effect under braking, which saw Elliott Court hit the back of Sanchez and have to spend double the time in the pits repairing his front wing. Whereas what could it have been? Could it have been a 1-2 for the DDK Racing team? Well, that explains exactly why they had the opportunity. They did not snatch it perfectly, and therefore they'll be ruining the points they could have made. But of course, it has led to a very intriguing set of championship standings coming into today. And today, we're here at the Circuit of the Americas. We are racing on its Grand Prix layout, as would be expected. And after today, of course, we will have our season finale on the 5th of March. It will be in Belgium at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Our drivers will be taken to its Grand Prix layout, and it will, of course, be a special anniversary race as well, or a pair of races we should say, because in that round it will be our 200th round of racing here in the League Zero Formula Series. Indeed, it's crazy to think we'll be closing out season 17 with such a milestone, but what a milestone it'll be, and we'll celebrate that in a week's time. So onward we go then to our 199th round of formal racing, and as we make our way into this round, well, how exactly do the standings stand after 7 rounds of the championship? We start with the Drivers' Championship, and what we can see here is that Finley Fitzsimmons, for the technical issues he had last time out, his lead has been annulled. It is now 0. The reason he is still leading, however, is result countback, with 7 wins to Elliott Court's single win, which he picked up his first win of the season last time out. Understandably, it does mean for Finley Fitzsimmons right now he has that tactical advantage. However, nobody wants it to go down to a time break, because that's the most nerve-wracking of all the ways you can win a championship. But Elliott Court, of course, whilst he was able to level the playing field last time out, he will be regretting the fact it could have been 2 from 2 in Spain, and if he'd been able to do so, it would be a championship lead he would have coveted to the best part of over 10 points. Still, it's equal, and then we do see in third, Adam Merchant. The Squid Gang Racing driver not able to make it onto the grid last time out, and therefore knowing he's got to go for perfection today if he wants to draw it all level between the top 3 or make his way ahead going into the season finale. However, behind the American driver is his fellow countryman Fabian Sanchez. Always keep your eyes out for him, because whilst he is an outsider at the moment for the championship, and theory would say that if he doesn't pick up the results today, he will be out of contention, he still does have the ability to really mix things up on the podium, and we are still waiting to see him take his first win of the season for INCA X51C. Elliott Rolls sits in 5th place meanwhile, and well for him, definitely not the race one he wanted, but the race number 2 he definitely earned, and therefore right now moves into 5th place ahead of Leo Delmar. And whilst Delmar was a finisher on the podium in race number 1, unfortunately for him in Spain, race number 2 saw all that come undone when mid-race incident seen him into the barrier, and unfortunately for the Frenchman, dropping down to 6th. He's on 88 points, 3 ahead of Shahi Zaher, the ever-consistent member of Arrive and Drive Racing, much like his teammate Nick Peterson. But of course, he's had the biggest spoils this season with a podium at Road Atlanta, and was ahead, definitely brought home some decent results last time out, even he's dropped slightly back. He's into 7th with Jace Mayer right behind there, and the MSR Purple driver, in the absence of his teammate being on the grid, he picked up consistent points, and they've been very valuable in the team's championship, as we'll come on to very shortly. He's ahead of Craig Brick by the best part of 4 points, and it's a further 13 to Antonio Bianchi, who moves into the top 10 there for INCA X51C. Nick Peterson sits 11th, best the rest, ahead of Jaden Callaway, and then we do have James Turnbull ahead of Sergey Perok, with Nicholas Asidro there in 15th, moving up 4 places. But what a day of racing it was for him, in the fact that in the sprint race he put together a very good result, and it did mean in the end he was able to start 2nd after finishing 5th in race number 1. However, when we went go in race number 2, his car did not go. It sat there on the grid, it stalled, and in the end everyone had to take evasive action, which everyone did brilliantly, to be fair to all of our drivers. And I think for Nicholas Asidro in the end, he might have been a bit scared about it, but he did get the car going in the end. But sadly for him, it meant he lost out on a major opportunity of potentially taking his first podium of the season. Still, he moves to 15th, and outside the top 15 from his 17 points, you do have 16 points there for none other than Gareth McAllister. He's dropped down 3 places. The INCA Chips driver known has more work to be done, but he's still ahead of Formula American Racing Team's Demont Dotson, with Felipe Ramos, Shea Braffett, and Renison Lowe completing your top 20. And behind Lowe, based on result countback, we do see there none other than Robert Nobles and Austin Thomas, and it's a further 3 points back to Jack Mundy, Xavier Zainab, and Johnston Bra. With 0 points to name, we do have Joshua Cronin ahead of Francisco Sosa, with Ryan Tebow also there, and completing your top 30, it's Cameron Nix and Matt Strong. Behind the 2 INCA Salsa drives, one for Verde, one for Racing, we then do look outside the top 30, and to complete our standings, we do have there, to round off our top 36, Catherine Sweat ahead of Carlos Palanas, with Aaron Gersler, Esteban Marquez, Arturo Mayorga, and Ricardo Espino. But if that's how the Drivers' Championship stands after 7 rounds of racing, how does the Teams' Championship look? Well, here is how it looks. We can see DDK Racing, they have moved into the lead with the golden opportunity. Whilst it wasn't perfect, they were able to take the lion's share of the points last time out. However, MSR Purple kept themselves within 27 points, and they owe that to Jace Mayer's consistent performances in Spain, and therefore it is really coming down to these two teams. Now, in theory, INCA X51C and Squid Gang Racing are both still within contention, but they are outsiders, and they can be ruled out of the hunt today if they don't score a mouthful of points and the two rivals at the top have good days. If the two rivals at the top have difficult days, then it could be a four-way fight for the championship crown when we do go to Spa-Francorchamps. However, the theory is the top two should seal the deal to make it only between them going to Belgium. But still, the fight is on for third as much as it is for the lead, and then we do see outside the top four, Arrive and Drive Racing, they're holding steady in 5th on 119 points, inching their way away from Rodent Racing, who are keeping them honest, and it's INCA Salsa Racing, they're holding a stable 7th. They're on 60 points, well clear to the tune of 41 points ahead of Raccoon GP, and the MSR Green team have dropped another place down to 9th now, and then INCA Chips sit in 10th place. Outside the top 10, it's DDK with TH Jordan on 8, still trying to find a top 10 result this season, ahead of Formula American Racing Team, and it's Team Boat and INCA Queso there who complete all your teams with 0 or higher points. On the negative points based on post-round penalties, we do have INCA Salsa Verde in 15th. But that's a recap of the standings then. Now let's come into the present and talk about our host circuit for today. Where's, of course, the Grand Prix layout of the Circuit of the Americas, or COTA as it's known in short. Located near the capital city of the US state of Texas, known as Austin, in the Travis County. Well, this circuit, of course, arguably it needs no introduction. It definitely has risen to a major acclaim over the best part of its 14-year history. Indeed, it's one of the youngest circuits in the world as well, and the premier-built circuit for Formula One racing in the US of A, where it's quickly evolved and been adapted to be used for racing for a whole variety of series, ranging all the way from the FIA World Endurance Championship through to NASCAR. But as our drivers make their way onto this circuit, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it, they'll see the fact that this circuit presents a huge array of technical challenges, where it be the charge all the way up towards turn number 1 into Big Red Bend, and as they make their way down past the Lone State Star flag, they'll come roaring the way into the Maggots into Beckett style complex of Silverstone at turns 2 through to 5. And then they'll find that the quarters gradually wind the way down through turns 6, 7, 8, and 9, so a very low speed at turn number 9, only then to build up the speed very aggressively, coming down through the kink of 10, and in towards the heavy braking zone of turn 11 hairpin. Well, there, drivers can go up to 6 wide if they so desire, given the way the corner branches out at approach to apex. But they'll need to find a way to lead out to that corner, or be the second car in the order, because it's down the 1 kilometre back straight, as they roar the way down towards the next hairpin at turn number 12, and into the tight and technical arena sequences, paying tribute to the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg in Germany. Then they'll make their way through the hairpin at 12 and into a backwards hairpin at turn number 13. We're coming into the kinks and curves at turns 14 and 15 to set up the braking zone for a third hairpin in succession at turn number 16. Then it's going to be looping back and through the long right-hander, or COTA curve as it's also known, past the tower at turns 17 and 18, while they make their way into the downhill left-hander at turn number 19, making sure to stay within track limits, otherwise they will be picking up slowdown penalties, if not black flags, and heading in towards the final corner at turn number 20. They'll complete lap only to do it all over again, or to finally see that finish line. In terms of rules, before we do go racing, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided by the League Zero administration ahead of each and every round of racing. Fuel loads are restricted to 40%. That will, of course, mandate a requirement to either save fuel or come into the pits in the feature race. In terms of qualifying, it's an open session. So that does mean, of course, all drivers out of the circuit together, and slipstream could prove valuable at some circuits, but here it might not prove as valuable. We'll talk more about of that in due course. There is no overtime in qualifying, so it means our drivers have to get the job done within the 15 minutes they are prescribed. If they do not, when the clock strikes 0, we immediately make our way back to the pit lane. And as for our races, they shall commence by a standing start, as it's an edition of the League Zero Formula Series, where drive-through penalty being awarded at 17 instant points, and we shall see the grid for the feature race being set based on the finishing positions of the sprint, with the top 6 inverted. So whoever wins the sprint starts in 6th place for the feature, and we continue that inversion until we get to the 6th place finisher of the sprint. They start on pole for the purposes of the feature, and then subsequently 7th and down, they start exactly where they finished in the sprint race. We should point out there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the races. We are expecting a fuel stop. However, drivers think they can get to the end on a single tank of fuel. Good luck on them, and they can go for it. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side, and while we are not too far away from making our way into what will be the qualifying session. But who exactly is looking the quickest of everybody at the moment? Well, it's looking as though Finley Fitzsimmons is the quickest of all by 1.2 seconds over Elliott Court. And well, right now, the MSR Purple car, they have got it back together, and it is all working, it would seem, as he practices a start there there on the start line, finish straight. Leo Demar looking quite quick at the moment as well, not too far behind Court, but ahead of that Bianchi. And where exactly is Adam Merchant all of this? Well, he's yet to set a time, so Adam Merchant does lead the pit lane, but he's not set a time in practice, so he might be the dark horse here. Well, without further ado, ladies and gents, as he goes for a spin, let's go to see who's exactly going to take the win in qualifying at least, as we do make our way into the 15-minute session. And so, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying gets underway. 15 minutes, it ticks down. Who exactly is going to put themselves on pole? Well, let's find out as they all, as quickly as possible, make the way out of the pits. Now, this will feel a bit of an intriguing and pressured qualifying session. We do have quite a long lap here at the Circuit of the Americas. Whilst the lap time itself will be under 2 minutes, the fact that it is more towards 2 minutes than not, well, it does mean for all the drivers here, they need to be cognizant of the fact they need to get the job done quite quickly, because you do the mathematics, and what you find is 15 minutes divided by 2, you get 7.5. Oh, hold up a second. What on earth's happened there? That was Finney Fitzsimmons and Elliot Roosevelt coming together, making their way in towards the SS sequence there. So both drivers making contact, and well, that's gone very wrong before it's gone right at all. That's not the thing we want to see whatsoever. And for both drivers, we'll understand right now they'll be reset into the pit lane. And that shows you how eager they are to get out there. Nobody wants to budge or give way at the moment. Well, I don't think we might be able to get a replay of that, but I can tell you one thing right now. We're seeing the aftermath, and know they'll be going once again. The good news is, of course, they do have the ability to tow to the pits immediately. They are not penalised for towing to the pits, but it obviously penalises them in terms of time consumed. And more time is of the essence. But as Elliot Court there tucks into the draft of what is one of the INCA X51 cars, and we also see Leo Tomar there sitting wide. Keep in mind, this is a qualifying session. This is not a race right now. They are not racing each other. They're just racing each other to essentially be the first to go deliver a qualifying lap. They all want to get around here as quick as possible. Well, how exactly is the qualifying session expected to play out here? What are going to be the big themes? Well, at the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia, we saw that being in the dirty of another car was really to your detriment. You didn't really gain much time. Around here, it's a mixed bag. You don't want to be behind another car through the opening half of the lap, particularly through the S's sequence, where the apexes continue to really show a lot of high load on the car and really abuse the downforce that these Super Formula, these SF23 machines, are known for. But when you come out to turn number 11 to go onto that 1 kilometre back straight, if you can pick up a toe there, it can be worth the best part of 3 to 4 tenths. And also on the start-finish line straight here, that could be worth 2 to 3 tenths as well if you pick it up right at the start of the lap. So therefore, if you have got a teammate out there who's willing to sacrifice a lap, you may in fact be able to gain quite comfortably off of it. But it really will be risk versus reward. There's places where you want the toe, and there's places where you don't want it, because all the time you can gain on the straights in the toe, you can lose just as much, if not more, going through the corners with the dirty air. But that means track position here is going to be very valuable because of the fact tyre degradation at the Circuit of the Americas by default is quite high given how many heavy load corners there are and how many heavy braking zones. It does really add up. But then when you add to that the fact that if you are following another car, you are naturally going to lose downforce for the start of the lap, and therefore it does mean that you naturally will lose time. You'll overheat those front tyres, getting how hard you have to work, and staying with another driver can prove very challenging. And it has been one of the things that has gradually needed to be worked around by teams in real life over the years, is in terms of figuring out how exactly they set up the cars and set up their drivers for success in terms of being able to make overtakes. It's not impossible to overtake him. We can see that in the road whip as Antonio Bianchi weaves from side to side, still trying to get some heat in those tyres. He's not happy with the tyres at the moment. This is on his first flying lap, or what would be his first flying lap. He's decided he needs more tyre temperature, and will make it his way on around. Right now he comes back to us very gradually. So with the amount of width here, overtakes will be possible, but of course it requires drivers to run very close to each other, and that's not impossible. And of course we did see Fabian Sanchez really push hard chasing down Elliot Court in race number 1 in Spain, and at certain points it did look as though he was going to overcome the wall of dirty air, and at other points he wasn't quite able to do so. But the confidence levels there were definitely outstanding, and he'll be hoping today he can put together an outstanding performance of his own. But as these laps now start to come on in, Elliot Court there just at the bottom of the camera. We focus on him. He's going to deliver his first lap as Antonio Bianchi puts a 46.0 together. That's not indicative of what he'll be able to achieve. And meanwhile, Elliot Court now makes way across the line. He does not deliver a valid lap, so he's got more to do. But Fabian Sanchez puts the marker there at what is the best part of a 45.447. I suspect we're just starting to see those times come in, and they will be coming down. Johnston Bra, we go second on a 45.952. He's definitely been one of those drivers who's been constantly chasing top 10s. As Finney Fitzsimmons, that's more like the times we are expecting for the best out there. Initially at 43.433. And the MSR Purple driver goes purple, but he's still got 2/3 of the session to go. More drivers right now coming in. Craig Brick as well, the 777 driver, who's definitely been one of the rising stars on the grid, and we believe watching his progress quite closely, albeit first lap in the board. It's a 46.458. If he's quite happy with that, although he'll be hoping that perhaps he can close the gap to Nick Peterson. And Nick Peterson, for the first time at the very start of a qualifying session, having a stronger time than his teammate Shahi Zahair. Albeit Zahair has yet to get a valid time on the board, so perhaps that's not a fair comparison. But they have been very close to two teammates here, and making the way on down the back straight right now. We can see that Sergei Prok tucked into the toe. Now, as a reminder, these Super Formula SF23 machines, they do have a push to pass button. They get 200 seconds of improved engine power, which they can use in the races. We need to emphasize that they cannot use it in qualifying, so therefore the qualifying session is all about doing it with the raw engine power of the car, which of course all these cars, whether it's a Toyota manufactured engine or a Honda manufactured engine in the car, they're both built to spec, and they are both what is none other than 2-litre 4-cylinder engines with a power output in the region of 550 brake horsepower. It's absolutely incredible what the manufacturer's been able to get out of these machines. They're not quite Formula 1 cars, but they definitely come close with regards to the aero on them and the performance, albeit we are, of course, going into the new era of Formula 1 as of 2026 with a whole new setup and set of compression ratios. And, well, of course, Formula 1 Grand Prix are not too far away from starting. It's going to be a very interesting time ahead there. But staying in the here and now, staying focused on what we're racing, was more times coming in. Sergei Prok crossed the timing line. Does he put a valid lap together? The answer is no. Shahi Zahair makes his way down through turn number 19, and he's yet to get a valid lap on the board. And as he rolls his way into the final quarter, well, is it going to be a valid one this time? It looks to be a personal best in terms of his sectors that he's applied together, but is he going to be able to join up the dots here and make sure he doesn't get 1x on the lap? And the answer is no, as Arturo Mayorga jumps up to 9th there. And, well, that's an impressive lap from the man who we owe a big thank you to, of course, because without him, it would not be possible for us to bring you this broadcast as if it were a live one, with the ability to do replays of racing action over the race distance. So, therefore, a huge shout out as always to Arturo Mayorga, but right now we also give him a shout out to the fact he's normal qualified right towards the back of the field in most Grand Prix, but what we have seen so far, he's currently 10th. Can he hold on to a top 10 start? Because that'd be absolutely lovely to see if he can put it together. But some drives we will not be seeing in this qualifying session, unfortunately. We do have two penalties that we need to make you aware of. The first one being for Esteban Marquez, who did pick up a qualifying ban, and therefore he has a back of grid start for the sprint race, albeit he's not here today, so that will be carried forward into our season finale at the Circuit Spa Francorchamps, whereby he was involved in a lap 1 incident in the feature race in Spain. And meanwhile, it will be a pit lane start. He is here today for Carlos Balanas, who had an incident on lap number 2 in the feature race, and therefore he is currently in the pit lane waiting, but he will only be allowed to go green flag racing when the rest of the field have cleared the pit exit line, and therefore he will naturally have a bigger disadvantage going into race number 1 in the fact that he has to make up the time to the rest of the field before he can go racing. Whereas the back of the grid start, yes, it's a punishment. You start at the very back, but you still start with everybody and you can make places even before you get to turn number 1, where a pit lane start doesn't allow you to do that. But more times coming in. Finley Fitzsimmons right now, a 43.105, his previous best, as he glides his way out to the final corner, and it's a 42.791. He is absolutely flying out there as Adam Merchant responds with a 42.727. Well, Adam Merchant there does not need to keep us guessing anymore whether he thinks he can perhaps deliver the goods today and level the field going into the season finale. That's definitely an impressive lap. Shahi Zahair jumps up to 4th place and a 43.973. It may be 1.2 seconds off of the pole sitter right now, but to be fair, that is a very good lap, and that's going to put him right in the contention for the 2nd and 3rd rows of the grid, with Fabian Sanchez and Elliot Rolls still finding time to improve. But we've got to find time to get on board like Wildfire Drives, ladies and gentlemen. Well, next time around, we definitely will. We're just waiting to get that opportunity, as we do see here Felipe Ramos in the number 73, making his way on around through COTA Curve. As he comes past the tower there, well, right now the lovely looking INCA Salsa racing machine with its blend of yellow and black. One of the most stylistic liveries out there, no doubt about it. And we're coming down through 19 in towards 20 right now, being very sensitive there to the corner exit, and all of our drives will be. Track limits around here are very heavily policed. One of the things that's notable, as we do see Ramos go 12th there on his first valid lap, well done to him on a 46.010, is that this circuit has plenty of runoff area, and it is a very greedy circuit for drivers in terms of what would be the track limits out there, where you want to push and use as much road as possible, but as soon as you put all 4 wheels beyond the initial white lines, even if there's a curb there, you will see your lap invalidated, and it will be a 1x in the races. And therefore it does mean, particularly for the feature race, our 24 lap race to wrap up today, we are expecting there to be a risk of drivers picking up drive-through penalties just by being too egregious with those track limits. But as Nick Peterson makes his way through the final corner, well, let's jump on board with him for a flying lap, ladies and gentlemen, as he heads across the timing line. Saying up the hill towards turn number 1, in towards big red corner. And as he does see the Stars and Stripes flag, we're going on to the brakes there, coming all the way down to second gear. Through left-hander, and now down the hill he'll come in towards turn number 2. Battling with a bit of power oversteer there as he settles the car down, and now into the S's sequence. Flat out initially, but at this point, of course, he'll be flat out into 3, into 4, and then he'll start to lift off the throttle here and try to keep as much speed as he can as he goes through turn number 60. Long right-hander now gives way to a sweeping left to turn number 7. But you notice the apex tightens up, and now into turn number 8, dropping down to third gear there as he battles with direction change through 9, and now flat out he'll go down towards turn number 11. Building up speed, coming through the INCA 10, and now he'll bring the car over to the middle of the road, or will he not? No, he brings it over to the right, in fact, coming into 11. There's multiple ways to skin this hairpin. Indeed, there's so many different lines to that corner, but he takes the classic outside line as he now powers his way down the back stretch. It's time for an opportunity to take a bit of a breather for Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing, albeit as he gets ready now to make his way over in towards turn number 12. It doesn't get that long, in fact, only about 10 seconds, where he now goes onto the brakes here, but that is Sergei Proc up his inside, and Proc there decides to try and cut and pass there in the slipstream, but Peterson will have a right potentially to complain about that, as he does back off, in fact, and well, that will definitely have invalidated his opportunity to go for a lap, and in fact, he invalidates it by going wide there at turn number 13. I think both drivers there wanting to go for a quick lap, and we jump off of Nick Pearson's car, and Sergei Proc wanting to seize the opportunity of the slipstream. Of course, that's why the awkward parts, which is, if you time it right with regards to the tow, you might be able to get ahead of the driver who you are towing with, even if you're not on the radio to them, they're not your teammate. But in that instance, Peterson did have to back off there, and well, if he feels though he was on for a good lap, he would be able to... Oh, goodness me! As he loses, there is Sergei Proc in the end. Well, it has not paid off, and in the end gone to the barrier, and that car will be in pieces, and that's going to be a tow to the pit lane there for Sergei Proc, right as he's coming towards the end of the lap, snaps loose out of turn number 20, and what was looking to be a very quick lap, particularly that middle sector with that draft, it would have been enough to put him well inside the top 10, approximately what could have been about 7th place. In the end, unfortunately, it's all falling apart, and well, that cuts off our train of thought. But what we were going to say is it may be even worse after today, because if Peterson feels though he was on for a better lap, he would in theory have the right to issue a complaint to the stewards afterwards to say, I wasn't a good lap, but another driver held me up. That's why the things in qualifying you have to be so careful. If you are going to take another driver, you've got to do it very cleanly, and you've got to make it so obvious that you didn't hold up the other car. But as Fabian Sanchez makes his way and down the back stretch here, where he's got his teammate coming up behind him there of Antonio Bianchi, so these two right together, and in the end Sanchez gives him the tow and then just lets the car go straight forward. He goes intentionally deep into the corner, and that buys Bianchi the best part of 3 to 4 attempts, and now he's got the hard work to do on the rest of the lap. But meanwhile, from him, we do see Peterson coming down, and now he has the company of Adam Merchant behind him, albeit Adam Merchant here, well, you can understand he's being patient, and I think he'll be annoyed at the fact he's got Peterson in front of him, but it's one of those, what can you do, because of the way he's timed the lap, and well, Peterson just wants to focus on what he's doing. Then that's all you can do as a driver in qualifying, focus on what you're doing in front, and let the guy behind have to deal with what you are doing, essentially. You don't have to worry as much, whereas in the race it's entirely different, of course, because then you have to worry about defending. There's no need to defend when you go qualifying. Going in towards turns 19 and 20 right now. Well, Merchant will know there's one more opportunity for him to go, but will he back off here, or will he expect that Peterson will move aside when they go on to their final flying laps? We'll come out the corner there. Merchant absolutely battling with the rear of the car, and that is where the dirty air is upsetting it. But here he goes, and up the hill, both drivers, and Merchant will pull to the inside here in order to take this off of Peterson, and he'll give himself the best chance as Finley Fitzsimmons goes all the way to the top, a 42.547, and that is almost 2 tenths faster than Adam Merchant. Peterson backs off, and Fitzsimmons now is going to go for one more, and we're going to jump aboard with him for his final flying lap. He's coming down for turn number 2, overturning into the corner, having to correct his steering mid-corner. That's rare, and as he makes way through turns 3, 4, 5, and in towards 6 here, absolutely attacking these corners. U-shape in the apex, and now coming down in towards turn 7. We can see here, Finley Fitzsimmons right now absolutely buttery smooth as he tacks the lap now through 8 into 9, and we're taking a lot of apex curve there. Bit of wheel spin as he came over the apex of 9. That was the sausage curve. Getting in towards turn number 11 now, braking nice and early here, about 125 meters from apex down to second gear, keeps it nice and tight to the apex, brings all the speed, and now all the way down the back straight he goes, building up towards maximum speed. They head upwards towards 188 miles an hour. And as Fitzsimmons builds up into 6th gear here, well, what's it going to be for that braking zone? How quickly beat when he goes onto the anchors? And the answer is around about 181 miles an hour. He brakes all the way down to 2nd gear. Now battling with power oversteer as he comes in towards turn 13. Lets the car run nice and wide on entry, and that gives him all the space. Now through 13 into 14 and 15, breaking out the apex of 15 to set up turn 16. Such a tricky sequence of corners, constantly fighting with the steering wheel as he now heads through COTA curve as he lets the car run wide at 17. That's the setup 18. You can see they're taking a middle of the road approach for all 3 parts of the corner. Now in towards 19, a bit of entry curve, it lets the car roll on in and just about keeps it together as Fitzsimmons goes onto the brakes here in towards turn number 20, down to 2nd gear, powers out. Adam Merchant goes for initial pole by 2.5 tenths. Fitzsimmons does not have the ability to respond. In the end, he only improves by a further 10. It wasn't the most perfect lap, and constantly battling with oversteering the car. And for Finley Fitzsimmons, it is going to be 2nd place in this grid. Adam Merchant will be taking provisional pole unless anybody else can sneak a lap in within the next 10 seconds. Will Shahi's ahead, will not be, and I get the feeling nobody else will at the moment. Sergei Proc is too far back. Meanwhile, Arturo Mayorga comes to line. He is currently 16th, and that's where he's going to stay. So qualifying is complete, ladies and gentlemen, and well, now it's time to head to the grid for the first of our 2 races here in round number 8 of the championship. And so as all the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our first race of the day. And as we can see, for round number 8 of Season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series, brought to you on iRacing and presented by INCA Salsa, it's Adam Merchant who returns to pole position after returning to the grid from missing Spain. But right now, he's definitely not been missed on the front row, and in his company, the Squid Gang Racing driver will have Finley Fitzsimmons for MSR Purple. Indeed, it is going to be devil's eyes between the two of those, battling up the hill towards turn number 1. It could be a spicy one. And then we do have Elliott Court starting 3rd, just behind the 3 championship contenders in the top 3 spots, and the DDK Racing driver, the defending champion, will have INCA X51C's Antonio Bianchi for company on 4th place. On the 3rd row just behind them, it's going to be Leo Domar for Rodent Racing and Arrive and Drive Racing Shahi's ahead. Then we do have Fabian Sanchez starting 7th there for INCA X51C ahead of DDK Racing's Elliott Rolls. And then we'll see on row at number 5 to complete the top 10. It's going to be Craig Brick, who just snuck in the end for INCA Salsa Racing, 4 tenths ahead of MSR Purple's Jace Mayer. Outside the top 10, starting in 11th, it's Nick Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing ahead of Robert Nobles with the MSR Green driver, then having the company of Johnston Bra behind him. Sergei Proc starts in 14th place ahead of Felipe Ramos. The Inca Queso driver there doing well in qualifying to take a spot inside the top 15, just about ahead of Arturo Mayorga by only a tenth of a second. The Inca Chips driver in the end was knocked back to 16th place, but he will start ahead of Gareth McAllister for Inca Chips, his teammate. And then we'll see Matt Strong, the last of our qualifying drivers there, in 18th for Inca Salsa Racing, and completing it your 19-car starting field. Starting from what will be the pit lane, it is going to be none other than Carlos Balanas for Raccoon GP. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is almost all set. All of our cars almost in position. In fact, I think they are all in position now, and we are now just waiting for what will be the lights out procedure as we can see all of our cars there. And well, we're doing it and get the better camera angle, just looking up backwards on the front couple of rows. But they're now only waiting for the lights procedure. Everyone itching to go racing, no doubt about it. 8 laps await them, 15 minutes, but it will be the laps that come first. And here we go as the lights come on. So the revs rise for the first time today at the circuit of the World Championships is going to be lights out, away we go for the first of our 2 racing round number 8, and it's a good start there from Adam Merchant. It's a good start from Vinny Fitzsimmons, and Merchant immediately pulls over. Elliott Court as the best of the 3 as they come in towards that braking zone. Fitzsimmons tries to go round the outside, but as they come through further back, it's 2, 3 wide, plenty here from every driver, and one it's going to be 4 wide practicing the apex there, as it's going to be Johnston Bra just ahead of Arturo Mayorga, but Mayorga getting a good run. He's gained 1 place, he's going to gain another one here. Mayorga moves into 14th place, a lovely start from him, as we will go straight on there. Nick Peterson has had to cut the course. That's going to be a slow down penalty that he's going to have to serve. And meanwhile, Carlos Balanas has now left the pit lane, is already making his way through turn number 2. So Balanas is the best part of around about 12 seconds from the field. That shows you the damage that the pit lane start does. But meanwhile, back to the front, we see Adam Merchant ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons and Elliott Court together. So the top 3 exactly as they started. And the gap's already stabilising around half a second as they come on down. Meanwhile, big look up the inside from Felipe Ramos on the inside of Johnston Bra. And Stonebra right now being knocked down the field further as he drops down to 16th place. And Felipe Ramos there regaining the 15th that he started in. But now down the backstretch they come, and everyone with the push to pass buttons on here. Nobody wanting to fall behind at this point. They can absolutely attack this course for this opening lap. As meanwhile, Craig Brick and Jace Mayer, they go 2 wide coming through turn number 12. But Brickingham will hold the place. Mayer goes on the inside, but cold tyres hold him back. As he's being held back behind Brick. Meanwhile, we see Nick Peterson now trying to make his way back forward after serving that slowdown penalty for track limits. Understandably, a bit of understeer washed him out and made his way go to the runoff areas, and he's now over the back of Robert Nobles, the MSR green driver, trying to keep him behind. Now, hold up a second, we've had a bit of drama. Where is Shahi Zahair? As he's dropping all the way down the order, I don't think we can see him, and there he is, he's gone for a spin as he makes his way out of a COTA curve, and he gets himself back together. We're going to need to get a replay of that, as meanwhile we've had an incident for Fabian Sanchez. He's been turned around there, that's on the exit of 19. So we've had a bit of drama right towards the end of that, but otherwise it's been a relatively safe lap from many a driver. But what exactly has happened, we'll find out very shortly. But meanwhile, after one lap of racing, it is Adam Merchant who leads ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons in second. Then we do have Elliot Court in third. Your top three as they started. Antonio Bianchi continues the theme as they were, as he's in fourth ahead of Leo Delmar, who currently sits fifth, 2 seconds behind. There's Elliot Rolls in sixth place, having gained 2 places since the start. So qualifying was not to shout home about, but he's had a race start to shout home about. And of course, if things were to finish as they currently stand, he would be your pole sitter for race number 2. Craig Bricks behind him ahead of Jace Mayer, and then we do have Robert Nobles and Nick Peterson completing your top 10, with Peterson right now on a mission to make his way as forward as humanly possible, and Shahi Zahair losing out, of course. Now it does mean they've only got one car for Arrive and Drive Racing inside the top 10. Sergei Prok in 11th place, best of the rest right now, continues to make his way forward, moving from 14th to 11th already, and I suspect he feels as though there's more work to be done. Johnston Bra would like to have a word with him, of course, and try and take that place back, but between the two of them is Arturo Mayorga, and that's how your top 13 currently stands, with Felipe Ramos a little bit further behind there, as we see in the rear of the picture, and Matt Strong having started the last of your qualified drivers. Well, he's in 16th right now, but carrying on his progress. Meanwhile, Nick Peterson has found his way past Robert Nobles there off camera, coming down in towards turn number 12. So therefore, Robert Nobles not having the happiest run through the sharp left-hander, and that's enabled Peterson to gain another place. We'll get a replay of that shortly, and in fact, we might be able to start getting replays of what's happened very soon, because we have got the ball queued up. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a look back in time and look at some moments, including, of course, that race start. So this was the race start for all drivers. They got themselves underway, and for Adam Merchant, well, it was always going to be close. These two cars starting on a slight incline. Meanwhile, Elliot Court on a much flatter piece of road. He got the best start of the top three, and you can see that here as they made the way into the opening braking zone. But Merchant was always going to go defensive, and Fitzsimmons looked down the outside in to open up the corner as much as possible. But had to run wide there, as you normally do, and as he came down in towards turn number 2, he could not make the magic happen. As meanwhile, the rest of the field gradually pulled itself together, and Arturo Mayorga, of course, battling side by side with Johnston Bra, in the end was able to sneak ahead through into turn number 3. But towards the end of the lap, there was a bit of drama, and this was the drama for none other than what was Shahi Zahair. Now this was coming in towards COTA curve. He was chasing at the time after Antonio Bianchi, but as he made his way in, too much speed and too much wheel input, and the rear of the car just completely let go and sent him all the way round, and that of his own volition, but still got himself back together once the field had cleared. And this happened to Fabian Sanchez only moments later. This was coming down in towards turn number 19, battling there with none other than the machinery of Elliot Rolls, and in the end a small tap to the rear left tyre of Sanchez from Rolls' front right tyre, and that's what sent him around. Can we get the on board there with Rolls, just to give you an idea of what that looked like from his perspective? Well, here we go, the two of them battling into this corner. Rolls had so much momentum here, and as he made his way and just understeered off there, did not quite shave the speed he needed to, and Rolls unfortunately making that contact, and Sanchez won't be too happy about that as we do return to your live racing. And as we do come back, here's Robert Noble still battling with Nick Peterson. Now, we didn't quite get the replay footage of how Peterson was able to make the move. How we can guess it was made quite comfortably in towards turn number 12. It was quite the send, but right now, well, there's just one slight problem here for Robert Noble. He's got Sergei Prok looking for an opportunity to pass him, and Prok looking one way, then the other, but not quite able to find a way through, at least at this time. As all tries now make the way on to lap number 4, almost at the halfway point already. That's how quickly laps are going, as that's a very quick snap there from Sergei Prok, but he quickly gets the car back under control. Could have absolutely lost it there, but not quite so. And right now, well, the battle for 9th through to 11th is only at 6/10 between 3 cars. Prok there really looking aggressive now under braking, but you can see, understandably, as they head in towards the SS sequence, he's not going to be able to make this happen. Meanwhile, your two leaders, Merchant and Fitzsimmons, they have closed down on each other. As we look back from the rear of your number 4 car, the race leader of Merchant, and right now, well, that pole position by Timpany is representative of the fact there's nothing between these two drivers when they do go racing, much like when they go qualifying. We can see Elliott Court as well, a second back there in the rear of the picture. He is closing on the fact these two are getting on top of each other, so it could still be a three-way fight for the win. And Tony Bianchi is only 2 seconds back, as we do see Adam Merchant there go for a little bit of a weave down the back straight. He's allowed to do that there. He's allowed the one weave, but not too many times. And also, of course, he does have quite a bit of a gap there to Vinny Fitzsimmons, so it's not as much a risk as if the two were very close together. Then they would have problems. We're coming in towards 13 right now for Merchant. It's definitely hold your ground. As meanwhile, we do come back here to none other than Elliott Rolls, who has been caught up to by Craig Brick, and the 777 is definitely on the march. But as he gets closer and closer, coming in towards the stadium section, well, right now there's no real way in. He takes a look up the inside there. That's more about threat and posture rather than anything concrete. We're trying to get into Rolls' head and say, look at me, don't look at your braking zone. But Elliott Rolls already knows about that. Of course, your runner-ups in season 16. Elliott Rolls has seen plenty of batting over the course of his career in the League Zero Formula Series, and he knows what is a valid overtake versus what is just simply trying to get somebody to look at him rather than look forward. But on to the second half of the race we go, and as we do, Robert Nobles still chasing after Nick Peterson, as Sergei Prog has dropped back a little bit. I think Prog's had a bit of difficulty towards the end of this lap and made a mistake somewhere, and well, with that, it's just cost him a bit of time. But we've also had a bit of difficulty for Matt Strong, who's dropped a bit down the order. Here he is. He's in 17th for the moment, but he has been passed by Felipe Ramos, and therefore now the gap between himself and Carlos Balanas still half a minute, so he'll be relatively safe there. But coming back to Peterson and Nobles, well, the fact that Robert Nobles is able to stay absolutely glued to the back of Peterson's car, even coming through the S's sequence here, is testament to his ability in the MSR Green machine. They've definitely got a driver who knows how to run in the dirty of another car, and Nobles attacking non-stop here as we jump on board with your number 2. And well, if the American driver makes his way through 9 and in towards 10 and 11, if he was any closer at this point, I think he would be looking for a move into the hairpin. He could still go for it here. He's going to look at the inside. In fact, he is going to go all in, so he is going to lunge. And Indian Peterson sees it coming and gives him the space to cooperate. And that's going to be a drag race down the back straight. Here, the push to pass buttons will be active, but as they make the way downwards, we can see there that right now it is going to be Peterson who gets a little bit of a distant tow there off of Jace Mayer just up the road, so that's going to help him out, and it'll just enable him to get back ahead there as the push to pass definitely fully engaged. Robert Nobles looks up the inside, but he's not going to be able to beat him in that divide, and in the end it will still be Peterson holding on to 9th, at least for now. Vinny Fitzsimmons, meanwhile, well, after chasing down Adam Merchant, I think he's had a bit of a mistake on this lap, and well, Sonny, he has lost out, and now Elliott Court's caught up to him. Now, in terms of where the time has been made or lost, it has been in the first 2 sectors that Fitzsimmons has lost 6/10 over that space. Meanwhile, Elliott Court has set the fastest first sector of the race. Adam Merchant goes the fastest lap, but right now Elliott Court definitely rising up through the ranks here as they head up the hill. Now he's going to have the problem, which is running the dirty of another car so closely as they make the way in towards the Maggots into Beckett's sequence. Coming down the hill for Court in the number 1. Well, of course, he has not just been given that number 1. That's your defending champion status on his car. And right now, can he use that knowledge as defending champion to find a way to overcome Finley Fitzsimmons? Because typically, when these two have gone toe-to-toe this season, it has been Fitzsimmons who's gained the upper hand. But Elliott Court right now will feel as though that his power has doubled since the last time they met. And he'll be hoping for an opportunity to go on the attack there. Albeit we'll put the Star Wars references aside as Elliott Court runs a bit wide there, and that's not the way you want to do it, coming out to turn number 9, and that's going to bring a slowdown to him, and in fact you can see him serving it immediately there, lifting off and backing off, and we'll suddenly Elliott Court there now losing some time, but he's still in the toe of Fitzsimmons, but indeed things not quite clicking together the way he would like them to. But meanwhile, going to Gareth McAllister over the back of his teammate Arturo Mayorga, these two close together as they head down towards the hairpin. McAllister here, who started ahead of what was Mayorga. Well, in fact, no, he started behind him there. We should correct ourselves. These two are essentially together as they were on the grid, and they are right behind Sergei Prok, who has not really gained after putting some initial pressure onto Nobles and Peterson. Things have not quite worked out for him. In fact, he's slipped backwards, and right now here comes McAllister in the draft. I think he'll be on the radio to his teammate to say, I'm going up the inside, and in the end they will battle, and Mayorga backs off there, braking a little bit early, as meanwhile he's out the inside of Johnston Bra. He's going to make that move, a classic one into turn at number 12, and he'll make it stick, and that's going to move Zuhair up into 14th. But Elliott Rolls right now still under pressure on Craig Brick with 2 more laps to go after this one, and understandably he needs to hold on to this position because otherwise he is going to lose the chance of what will be pole position for race number 2, and well, pole positions do not come frequently to anybody in this series unless you've got a huge amount of qualifying pace, so therefore taking that pole for Rolls will be valuable. And meanwhile, oh, that's a very big near miss there from Craig Brick as he exited out to turn number 20, power oversteer there, and the car just coming loose on him. And understandably, the figures, this tarmac, of course, not the grippiest tarmac in the world. Add to that the fact that our drivers do run out to those exit curves, which whilst they open up the road, they do not have anywhere near as much grip as the tarmac itself. And suddenly you get the power down. These machines, of course, have a huge amount of torque over the rear wheels. They are mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and very quickly you can end up going on around. But meanwhile, there's been a spin there. Speaking of going around, that's Arturo Biorga go for a spin. Ooh, goodness me, as in the end he gets it turned. Felipe Ramos there obeys the yellows and goes around the outside. And Arturo Biorga finally gets it turned around, but loses time, loses places as well. And we'll come around very shortly to seeing how exactly that happened. In fact, I think we can go back in time and take a look immediately. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So this was the replay of Arturo Mayorga at the time just ahead of none other than Shahi Zahir after swapping place with Gareth McAllister. Went in the middle of the road and the rear of the car just simply came around him there. I think a bit too aggressive on the downshifts perhaps. And meanwhile back on lap number 4 we had this for Matt Strong. Went a bit wrong for the INCA Salsa driver. Made his way up the hill, and I think it's going to be a similar instant here whereby as he's made his way into the corner, has the rear just simply departed him? Yes it has, on the outside line there, and I suspect it might be where he's come off the brakes and tried to downshift. The rear wheels have spun up a bit aggressively. But back to your live racing we go. And well, as we do, we're not too far away from seeing the finish line because Adam Merchant right now goes on to the final lap. The white flag waves, and right now for Adam Merchant, everything is looking absolutely set up for success here, but he's got to make sure he doesn't make any more mistakes. Finley Fitzsimmons trying to hold on to second at the moment with Elliot Court close behind, and after getting close to Merchant, the wall of dirty air was too oppressive, and right now he's trying to oppress Elliot Court instead. Battles elsewhere. Well, Antonio Bianchi looking very much set for fourth, as is Leo Delmar for fifth. Here is Leo Delmar right now for the Rodent Racing team. And Elliot Rolls, in fact, has caught up to him a little bit on that last lap. It does seem as though Delmar decided to back off, in fact, losing 8 tenths on that previous lap. I wonder if he made a small error. And with respect to that, that's brought Rolls close. But, of course, Rolls being 7 tenths behind, he's in that nasty zone whereby he's getting the dirty air, but he's getting no real benefit for being there. And meanwhile, we'll look back to Nick Peterson, who's still battling with Robert Nobles. Nobles found his way on through, and that was early on in the race. And now Peterson trying to come back at him in the closing stages. And one of these drivers right now playing the game of follow the leader. And, well, if Peterson can get within 4 tenths come the exit of the hairpin at turn number 11, he may have a chance, but he won't be when he runs that wide. That is an off track, and that's going to seem like to burn some time to give back the time he has theoretically gained by the iRacing stewarding system. And well, as he comes down in towards turn number 11, that may just simply put his aspirations at an end. But meanwhile, back to the fight for second. That is going to be caught looking up the inside of Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons intentionally ran a little bit deep there, getting himself a better run up towards turn number 16. And well, that's going to keep him safe here as now as they come through COTA curve. Well, Elliot Court now half a second behind, but something tells me that right now I don't think he's going to be able to get close enough because they come through here. Well, right now it's for Fitzsimmons to make a mistake to give Court an opportunity, but that's not going to come as meanwhile heading into the final quarter. Adam Merchant, he may have missed Spain, but he's not missed being on the top of the field because he's going to take the win here in the first race of the day. Ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons, who comes home in second, and Elliot Court will round off the podium in third place. And then it will be Antonio Bianchi who comes on home in, well, in fact, Finley Fitzsimmons dropping down the order, but don't guarantee on that, ladies and gents, as Bianchi comes home in fourth, ahead of Leo Delmar, who takes fifth, and then it will be Elliot Rolls who brings on home sixth place ahead of Craig Brick. Elliot Rolls will be your pole sitter for race number 2, we believe. And then it will be Jace Mayer coming home in none other than 7th place ahead of Robert Nobles, and then Sergei Prok will round off your top 10. And well, in best rest it will be Shahi Zahir ahead of none other Gareth McAllister, with Johnston Bra ahead of Nick Peterson by looks he's just about as they cross the line, and it is going to be Gareth McAllister who brings on home, or in fact does he? No, he has had an incident on the final quarter. Felipe Ramos will bring on home what will be 14th place just ahead of Gareth McAllister, who takes 15th ahead of his teammate Arturo Mayorga, and then we will have Matt Strong come across the line in 17th place right ahead of Carlos Balanas, who in the end will get things back together right at the finish. But we're going to try and understand what exactly has happened with regards to Finley Fitzsimmons. Is that a timing glitch or not? Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see Carlos Balanas make his race complete. And in fact, no, we have confirmation that Finley Fitzsimmons has picked up a black flag for instant points due to a number of off-tracks accrued, and therefore Finley Fitzsimmons has been demoted with a post-race time penalty. He couldn't serve the drive-through penalty he would have picked up, so Finley Fitzsimmons therefore is not your runner-up in this race. All those places you have seen him drop are valid. He has taken 13th, and Sonny Craig Brick will be taking pole position for race number 2 as Carlos Balanas completes his race, and we'll very shortly give you a rundown of the finishing positions from this one, as we do see Balanas coming across the timing line there. But what a race it's been, ladies and gentlemen, and of course we've got another one straight immediately to come. But as we do have the interluding warm-up period for our drivers, just to give themselves a little bit of a cool down, well, let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And after a brilliant 8 laps of racing for our first of our 2 races here, and round number 8 of Season 17, the League Zero Formula Series, presented by INCA Salsa from the COTA Grand Prix circuit, Adam Merchant converting pole position to victory there for Squid Game Racing, and in the end it would be by 3.7 seconds over Elliot Court, who was promoted to second after a black flag drive-through penalty converted into a post-race time penalty for Finley Fitzsimmons, who finished second on the road but demoted to 13th. So Court rises up to the second spot of the podium, and the DDK Racing driver will take the championship lead off of Finley Fitzsimmons after this race, but knows he's got more work to do in race number 2. Antonio Bianchi promoted to the podium there for the INCA X51C driver. It's been a long time since we've seen him on the podium, but well done to him. In the end, his hard work has paid off, and Leo Damar moving to 4th there for Rodent Racing, a further 6 seconds behind. Elliot Rolls takes 5th in the end for DDK Racing, not the pole position that he thought he'd be taking. He'll be taking 2nd on the grid for the final race of the day, ahead of Craig Brick, who in the end will be taking that pole position for INCA Salsa Racing. And then 7th place there, starting where he finished in race number 1, it will be Jace Madder for MSR Purple, who in the end pushed as hard as he could, but he couldn't quite close up to Brick, and therefore had to settle for that 7th, knowing he held Robert Nobles at bay. The MSR Green driver behind the sister team machine, but he did well there to fight for what would be 8th place in the end, ahead of Sergei Proc, who moved forward into 9th, just passing Shahi Zaher in the later stage of the race, and the Arrive and Drive Racing driver round off the top 10. Johnston Bra took 11th ahead of Nick Peterson, and we believe that Peterson had a late incident that we didn't catch. The Arrive and Drive Racing driver in 12th, just ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons. That's where he was demoted to with the post-race time penalty. So the MSR Purple driver, this championship campaign right now definitely seems to have all the wheels fall off of it, and they're trying to put them back on. And well, the MSR Purple driver knows he's picked up no points in that first race of the day, but can he now come all the way through adversity? Of course, we did see that all the way back at Road Atlanta, where he came from the back of the field to take victory. Can he do it here at the Circuit of the Americas? Felipe Ramos took 14th place, just ahead of Gareth McAllister, and behind the Inca Queso and Inca Chips drivers, it will be another Inca Chips machine there of Arturo Mayorga in 16th, with Matt Strong and Carlos Balanos completing your top 18. 7 laps down, unfortunately having to retire the car due to an incident. Fabian Sanchez with that spin towards the end of lap number 1, unfortunately doing damage to the car, and the Inca X51C driver in the end not quite able to get it recovered ahead of race number 2. But of course, that was just race number 1. We've got a 24-lap feature race coming up very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll definitely, if race number 1 has kept us guessing as to when the moves may happen, I suspect race number 2 is going to be full of strategic moves, just as it will be on with regards to on-track moves, and over 24 laps. It's definitely going to be a race of consistency and also strategy, as well as bold and brilliancy right at the front. But of course, we've not got too long to wait. And if you haven't had the chance yet, if you need to take a quick toilet break, or alternatively, if you need to go get yourself a top of liquid refreshment, or get yourself some more popcorn, chips, or whatever your favoured snack is, do so now, ladies and gentlemen, because we are only 2 minutes away from going to the grid once again for our second and final race of the day here in the US state of Texas. But if you are staying with us, and whilst we are in this intervening period, we just took a quick sip of water there, following our own advice, whereas Leo Damar decides to park up the car. I suspect that might be him trying to do a practice start there on the back straight, which he'll do on the inside of the circuit in preparation, and that way he does not impede anybody else who wants to potentially give themselves an opportunity to make just more laps around the circuit. And will practice start always valuable. These cars very challenging to launch, given the amount of power that goes through those rear wheels, the amount of wheel spin that can occur. And Johnston Bra here making his way on down the back stretch right now, and found himself elbowed down the order in race number 1, particularly through turns 1 and 2 in the opening lap, but he didn't give up in the number 70 car. And we look forward to seeing whether he can perhaps do a bit of an elbowing of his own in the start of the race as he gets himself all set and composed. Carlos Balanos does put a lap on the board for us there, and with a bit of introspection, a 47.940. And, well, understandably, with the pit lane start in race number 1, we didn't really get to see too much of him, although we did see him make it to the checker flag. But in race number 2, we're hoping, because he'll be started from towards the back of the field, but he'll be with the field this time, that we'll get to see him put some batting on, because we know he's a quick driver, and he's definitely been chasing the top 10s as the season has gone on. But we wonder if the number 83 driver could be in the top 10 come the end of today. And, well, as he makes his way on around, well, everyone else currently sat in the pit lane, all peaceful, although Finley Fitzsimmons does make his way back out. And well, right now, I think this is going to be a little bit of a practice start here from Finley Fitzsimmons, as he does park the car down pit lane exit. Nope, that was just to get the car out the pits, perhaps to practice a pit exit launch, whereby essentially he's practicing leaving his pit stall and just managing the wheel spin here on the rather abrasive surface, as Johnston Bra does the same. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our second and final race of the day. It's time to make our way to the grid for the 24-lap feature race. Now, as we do transition to the grid, there's a lot of cloud coming over the circuit. I wonder, we've got rain. I was about to say, have we got rain on the cards? Because that's getting very dark and brooding. Yes, we have. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is how they'll all line up for race number 2. Well, mixed conditions could serve to mix things up here, but starting on pole position after his 6th place finish in race number 1, it is Craig Brick for INCA Salsa Racing. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Elliot Rolls for DDK Racing. Behind them on row number 2, is going to be Leo Del Mar for Odent Racing, and then Tony Bianchi for INCA X51C. In 5th, it's going to be Elliot Court there, the run-up from race number 1 for DDK Racing, head of Adam Merchant of Squid Gang Racing, your outright winner of the opening race of the day. Then on the 4th row of the grid, it's going to be Jace Mayer for MSR Purple, ahead of his sister team driver MSR Green of Robert Nobles, and round off that top 10, it'll be Sergei Perok, the privateer, ahead of Arrive and Drive Racing Shahi Zahair. Outside the top 10, starting in 11th, it's going to be John Stunbra, the privateer, ahead of Nick Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing. Finley Fitzsimmons, demoted with a post-race time penalty in race number 1, starts 13th in this one, not the second place that he was thinking he was going to earn, and therefore the 5th place start. Instead, all the way down the order in 13th for MSR Purple, ahead of Felipe Ramos for INCA Queso. And on row number 8, it's going to be Gareth McAllister for INCA Chips, ahead of his teammate of Arturo Mayorga, and it'll be Matt Strong for INCA Salsa Racing and Raccoon GP's Carlos Balanas, who complete the final full row of the grid. And then starting in 19th place from the very back, Fabian Sanchez for INCA X51C. Now, what we can tell you is that Matt Strong has opted not to start on the grid. He might be starting from the pit lane. Perhaps they've changed the tyres at last possible moment. But otherwise, this is going to be a big guessing game. Who starts and wets? Who starts and dries? And well, ladies and gentlemen, here we go then, as they all get ready to go racing. And well, for the second and final time today, it is going to be fire lights. And it's lights out and away we go here as the rain falls in Texas. But right now, the places falls to Elliot Rolls. He gets the better launch. But look at everyone behind as it's a poor start there for Craig Brick. But meanwhile, Adam Merchant immediately go from 6th to 1st in the space of the run up the hill. They all come through the opening hairpin. All stroke. Oh, there's a big pinch there. And that's going to cause will be secondary contacts. That's going to send, I believe, Elliot Court's car down. Craig Brick as well. Also being caught up in that. Leo Del Mar coming off the worst as a result of it. And well, as they all crawl along, we're going to get a replay of that when we can. But definitely some drama there early on. But it doesn't look as though we're getting a safety car as me, while Finley Fitzsimmons already going around the outside there. Sergei Pro, what a move from Finley Fitzsimmons to do that. He's absolutely attacking the lap right now. He knows he doesn't take any prisoners here, and the rain's not going to take any prisoners either. As meanwhile, Fabian Sanchez, he's come all the way from 19th to 12th already in the opening 7 bends. So right now we've had absolute heroics for some drivers. We've also had a few mishaps, but it's absolutely brilliant so far. And we've got more to come, as this is going to be Elliot Court up the inside of Nick Peterson. Well, Court having an absolutely dismal start from 5th. He's dropped to 11th. Now he's back to 10th. And the number 1 driver has got more to do as he makes his way down this back stretch as your leaders are spreading out. But meanwhile, it's all close together here as Fabian Sanchez looking for another place, as Sergei Prok's going to have some company here, and that is going to be up the inside Shahi Zahair. Meanwhile, that'll be Fabian Sanchez up the inside of Peterson, and Ian Peterson goes a bit deep, running into the runoff area where Walter will be gathering. That's not where you want to be, as, hold up a second, where's Jace Mayer? He's gone to the gravel, he's got it out the gravel just in the nick of time, but he's going to rejoin him for a long way back down the order. In fact, drops all the way down to 15th place. I'm not sure there's contact there, but either way's lost out. As meanwhile, Elliot Court side by side with Sergei Prok as they roll their way through COTA curve, and then Court goes around the outside of Prok. Another place gained here. Right now, the grip in places that others can't find it. And well, Elliot Court there trying to do his own version of Finley Fitzsimmons and doing it absolutely fantastically as they head towards the end of lap number 1. So 1 lap done, another 23 to go. It's Adam Merchant who leads by 2.2 seconds over Elliot Rolls, and Tony Bianchi sits in 3rd place just behind. Then we have Finley Fitzsimmons a further 2.5 seconds adrift, having come from 13th to 4th already on the open lap. Well, at that rate or not, he should take the lead of this race and run away with it, but that's not going to be that easy. Craig Brick sits in 5th, ahead of Robert Nobles. Elliot Court now up into 7th place there. We've had a bit more of an exchange up the hill. Shahi Zahair sits in 8th, ahead of Fabian Sanchez, and Sergei Prok completes the top 10. We're losing out to turn number 1. But he went very deep. They will get a replay of that very shortly if we can. Best of rest in 11th is Nick Peterson, ahead of Johnston Bra, who has Felipe Ramos for close company. As me on the pit lane, we do have Leo Delmar's car, and Matt Strong's car at the moment is out there, but it is effectively a lap down. So a technical issue before they could get it to the grid. They have fixed the issue, but Strong is starting the race a lap down, and then he's here now to try and pick up the places if it goes wrong for others. But meanwhile, something going right here, that's Robert Nobles making a move up the inside of Craig Brick. Now the only problem is he's got the long back stretch to go, and we can see Brick there immediately push the pass button on, try to come back at him, but Noble's here looking safe at the moment. I think both drivers here using the overtake button, and with the MSR Green driver right now feeling safe here as he holds his racing line and does not react at all. Meanwhile, speaking of reactions here, well, it's going to be Fabian Sanchez looking at the inside of Shahi Zahair, and well, no sign of inhuman reactions there, because in the end Zahair lets it go, and Fabian Sanchez making a classic move on the inside, moving up to 8th place. But I suspect right now Zahair playing the game of keeping it together, as meanwhile Elliot Court under pressure, Craig Brick coming back at him. And Court trying to make sure that he's able to make his way clear and up into 6th place. And number 1 driver does take the place then, going through was turn 13 in towards 17. And Court now up into the top 6. More work still to be done, and a few drivers here struggling where others are feeling comfortable. As we do see our drivers making their way through COTA curve. Well, Sergei Prop meanwhile having to go defensive. Oh, that was very close there, as Nick Peterson had so much speed, so much more confidence in the car. But in the end, he found in the late portion that Sergei Prop was going to cover off that line. Meanwhile, car around, that's Robert Nobles. Nobles has got around the exit at turn 20. He's going to have to try and get that car turned, but it's going to take a long time. The steering lock of these machines very tight. But meanwhile, that's going to be Fabian Sanchez up the inside of Craig Brick, taking 6th place off him. He started in 19th. He's now up to 6th place. Sanchez is absolutely flying out there as well. But there's more going on, as that's going to be Felipe Ramos going deep at turn number 1, and Johnston Bra cuts to the inside of him as the sun comes back out. Well, the rain we've had, it's now becoming a bit more intermittent, as here comes Ramos battling with Stunbra again. Going into the S's, they're too wide on entry. They're still too wide. They're going to go too wide all the way through, but Stunbra does cut the corner there. Surely that's going to lead to a slowdown penalty at some point, but right now Ramos still sticking it with him, and indeed he will get back ahead. But what brilliant race in between them. It's not over yet either, as we jump aboard here with Gareth McAllister, who stays right behind as they come out tonight in towards 10 and 11, and perhaps Dunbar's been able to get away with it, to be fair to him, in the fact that he did lose a lot of time going through the S's, and that is taken into account with respect to the slowdown they are given, if they are given, when it's done on an average lap delta from car to car. And when in Dunbar, he lost the place to Ramos by default, and therefore I don't think he's had to give up the time. But what a fight. Meanwhile, the fighting's not over, as we then look to Nick Peterson going up the inside of Sergei Prog, and well, behind them that is Jason Mayer trying to get involved here. Mayer's going to tuck up the inside following Peterson into the corner, and Prog meanwhile goes a little bit deep, as does Peterson. Jace Mayer goes around the outside now. Peterson in towards turn number 13. It's a lovely move from Jace Mayer. He sweeps on around and he moves up into 9th place now. So Jace Mayer back with the charge after a dismal start to his race. He's on the recovery path, as Peterson and Proc now watch on from behind. But as the rain continues to fall and we go on to lap number 4, Adam Merchant is still running away at the front of the field to the tune of about 1.8 seconds a lap at the moment versus Elliot Rolls at least. But meanwhile, we need to take a look back at some of the big moments from the start of this race, albeit there's so much going on right now we don't have the time to step away, because we can see here it's now going to be the INCA chips machines under pressure. Arturo Mayorga ahead of Gareth McAllister, and Robert Nobles on the back of them with Johnston Brad just in front as well. It's all making intrigue happen. And further down the order, and of course understandably it does mean that if there is a need to come into pits early to change tyres, we unfortunately don't have the data to tell us who started on dries and who started on wets. We presume that we'll hold the phone on that one, because here comes a move from Robert Nobles at the inside of Gareth McAllister. McAllister gives him the space, and in the end Robert Nobles will go for 15th place there, because we don't have the data to know exactly which tyres drivers are running, whether they are running wets or slicks. Well, we'll have to try and guess it based on the tread blocks we can see on the tyres if we can. If they have got tread blocks, they will be running wet. If they are very smooth tyres, it will be slicks. But I suspect a lot of drivers will have gone to wet tyres for safety, but those wet tyres of course will, once they start to see the circuit dry up, should it dry up, those wet tyres will start to blister very aggressively. But meanwhile, here's a bit of change, because that is going to be Arturo Mayorga up the inside of Stubra, but in turn Robert Nobles makes it 3 wide, and Stubra backs off entirely. Robert Nobles dies at the inside of the pair of them. He goes for a 2-for-1 special, and well, right now as they make the way on forward, it's going to be Nobles moving up. Meanwhile, Arturo Mayorga still has to fight with Stubra here as they head down the back stretch. And the fighting absolutely intense outside the top 10. But to be fair, the fighting for every point, because of course the points extend all the way down to 12th place for a single point. So they all want the opportunity to take on Felipe Ramos, but Ramos is still out the picture at the moment. But in the end, it will be Nobles who gets ahead of Mayorga there, as Elliot Rolls makes his way in towards the final quarter of this lap. And Rolls has got that growing pressure, which is that Finney Fitzsimmons is close and inching closer and closer with every quarter turned. But making the way up the hill, and we can see Fitzsimmons there so close at the moment. Does he go for the move into one? Yes, he does. Does he get it done? No, he doesn't, because Elliot Rolls tries to outbrake him, but Rolls, the end, uses all the runoff area. He will be too wide. That'll count as an off track, but as they come out to turn 2 in towards 3, Fitzsimmons will take the lead in this battle. He will move up into that second place, and Rolls, the end, losing an instant point there for the sake of trying to hold on, but it was not possible. Meanwhile, we see Zahir, Maya, and Brick together. There's Chase Mayer taking the cheeky Pete once. He's going to go for it. There's Craig Brick out, breaks himself into the hairpin. And Mayer takes the place. And now this could be Shahid Zahir trying to take it as well. Looking around the outside, but can he get it done? And in the end, he is going to commit to it. It's going to be the equivalent of Fitzsimmons on Rolls. And Zahir does take the place there. Brick does not fight it too hard, lets it go. And Shahid Zahir now up into 8th place as Craig Brick falls back a little bit further. But we look back here. Oh, that's a little bit of touch there. Philippe Ramos on the back of Sergei Prog. Prog just squeezing ahead to make sure he holds the place there for 12th, coming through the S's sequence. Then Ramos, I think, went to try and come back, but then realising too late in the day that there's not going to be a space for him to do so. So therefore, a little bit of a nudge of the front wing to the rear of the driver in front, but he get away with it. And meanwhile, coming down the hill, well, here he goes. Ramos here trying to come back. He wants that point. And as he looks up the inside, Prop covers him off, and therefore he has to go back to the outside as Ramos, as Mayorga follows him. You see, look at the dry patches on the outside there, the hairpin right now. There's very little water there. Hairpin, oh, goodness me. And in the end, as we saw Prop coming off the curve, the car sliding loose a little bit. Philippe Ramos having to take evasive action just in the nick of time. But it's pretty wide here, headed down the back stretch. And where it's going to be on the inside, Arturo Mayorga. He's going all for this. Proc, he's going to be on the outside. In the middle is going to be Ramos. And in the end, Sergei Proc locking up on the brakes. There's a little bit of touch wheel to wheel with Ramos. And Arturo Mayorga makes the move. He makes the double happen. We're looking back for the rear of the number 55 driver. Well, the INCA Chips driver now holding on to this position for the INCA Salsa Chips team. And we're definitely right now feeling all high off of that one. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to have a big grin on his face. And he hasn't put on too many mega moves this season. But when he does, he really does deliver them, Arturo Mayorga. And that's going to go in one of the history books, that one. Meanwhile, coming back to Shahid Zahir, well, he decides to flick to the pit lane. So as he comes on in, is this a sign that he might have started on the wet tyre? And with the circuit drying now, well, is it going to be the case that he needs to go to the slicks? But the problem will be he's then going to have to do the best part of what will be 19 laps on a slick tyre. Meanwhile, the inside in towards turn 1, that's Robert Noble's going all in for the move. Does he get it stopped? Yes, he does. And Craig Brick doesn't really have an answer to that. But we are definitely seeing a difference of strategy starting to play out as Nick Peterson as well is in. Oh my good lord, where's the rear wing gone there? For another Sergei Proxcar, missing the rear wing. Meanwhile, Gareth McAllister comes on through. I'm not exactly sure what's happened, but suddenly all that's gone. We're going to need to get a replay of that when we can, as me or Johnston Bra comes on through. And well, that is a shock to the sense there as the sun's out right now, and whoever starts on the wets, this is going to feel a very punishing race. And well, as we understand it, Zahir and Peterson, the Arrive and Drive team, opted to start on the wet tyres, where everyone else seems to have at least started on slicks. At least that's the data we've been able to gather, but we are keeping an eye on it. But ladies and gents, with a little bit of rain falls, it's not enough here to make this a wet race. We're going to take a look back in time at some of the big moments since the start of this race. There's been so many of them, and well, here we go in terms of going back in time. And so we head back to your race start first as all the drives got underway. And of course, such dark skies over the circuit to begin this race. But as they all went green flag racing, well, what could we tell? Well, first, it was a very slow start there for none other than not for Antonio Bianchi, Leo Del Mar, who fell backwards. And then it was 4-5 wide into the opening corner. But as they all made the way through, every driver practically safe on through until there was the big squeeze coming out of the corner. And well, that led to several cars being caught up, including Jace Mayer there. But can we actually see what happened with regards to the big squeeze? We can. This was the onboard from Leo Del Mar's perspective. So this was Del Mar coming out the corner. He'd already had the poor start, and here he's going to be surrounded. And in the end, they both ride over his wheels. And Del Mar, in the end, having his front right tyre collapse to the suspension. And well, that was contact there with, I do believe, the two cars of none other than what was Elliot Court. And also, I wonder if that was Finley Fitzsimmons caught up there. Well, we did the onboard with Elliot Court in this situation. And this was caught coming out of the corner. In fact, we can't get the on board. We can see what happened there. And we'll know Finley Fitzsimmons had to take evasive action to avoid being caught up in that, but he managed to survive it just about. And what unfortunately was Antonio Bianchi also got caught up in that one, but was able to survive it a bit better. Towards the end of the open lap, we did have this big moment for Jason Mayer. This was Mayer coming down in towards turn number 12. And as he went into 13, what exactly went wrong for him here? He was looking around the outside of Craig Brick. Contact with Brick there, sent him on around. So that explains why he was in the gravel trap. And well, I think a bit of a misunderstanding there from both drivers. I don't think there was any malice meant from Brick, but understanding Mayer tried to turn in and Brick just overextended on the braking zone, at least it would seem. But of course, that's the camera angle that we see. They should have plenty more. We then had this big moment for Shahid Zahir on lap number 2. This was Zaher having a bit of a difficulty coming through turns 7, 8 and 9 with wet weather there, and in the end made his way out the corner and went a little bit wide, whereas everyone else will stay within track limits, but I think just trying to push so hard. And then Robert Nobles had this happen to him, and this was Nobles coming down towards turn number 20, and as he made his way in, he's going to lose the rear of the car here, if my memory serves me correctly, and yes he does. Car comes loose, slides along, and very quickly comes to a stop there, but he has of course then get it turned on around, something far from easy. We then had this big moment for none other than Antonio Bianchi on lap number 5. This is where it went a bit wrong for Bianchi coming in towards the S's sequence, and well, made his way into 3, then into 4, clipped the sausage curb, clips another one, it sent the car straight on there, and well, the suspension of that car may no longer be as straight as it once was. And well, after all that, we had this big moment on lap number 5 for Felipe Ramos versus Sergei Proc. And of course, this was the three-way battle between that Proc, Ramos, and also Arturo Mayorga. And Mayorga, in the end, going up the inside of the pair of them. It was a brilliant moment, and Ramos and Proc both making a bit of contact there, but just about surviving it. But then we had this moment going on to lap number 6, and this was where suddenly, well, we're not quite sure what exactly happened to Sergei Proc's car, but it's lost the entire rear. Can we perhaps get an earlier look? Can we look back in time a little bit? We might be able to. And can we see what happened to Sergei Proc's car? It was fine initially, now into the braking zone here. Gareth McAllister was close. Did he hit him on the rear? He did. So as he tried to snap to the inside, went a little bit too late on the brakes, and that hit the rear of Proc's car. And that's how Proc lost all of his rear wing. That explains the story as Gareth McAllister and then hit him with the rear of a tyre, was able to get away with it would seem, as we make our way back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. Well, indeed, plenty of time to look back there with regards to some big moments from the opening 6 laps of racing, but we have missed a couple of laps. And what exactly have we missed as a result of it? Well, Vinny Fitzsimmons is still trying to chase down Adam Merchant, albeit these drivers right now pushing on as much as they can. Arturo Mayorga battling with Craig Brick here as he goes up the inside for 9th place, and he's going to take that in the number 55 with Craig Brick in the 777 falling back. Rain falling, however, it is notable the fact that it really is right now very light rain, and it's not really settling. And with the heat these drivers have got in their tyres right now, as long as they can maintain the pace, they will be safe. If they're on the slick tyre, they will be able to keep it warm enough to be able to burn away the wet contact patches. We do see the two arrive and drive teammates going side by side. Peterson and Zaher coming in towards turn number 12, and well, they're fighting right now. And understanding they have gone to the slick tyres, they were the wet starters, and well, with the best part of over 2/3 of the race still to go, well, Zaher right now having to try and find his way through, but Peterson not making it easy for him. And well, number one rule of race, of course, is to beat your teammate. The number 2 rule is don't take your teammate out, and well, I suspect that both drivers right now trying to be smart about it as they enjoy the battle. But from them, well, we look back up to Elliot Rolls, currently running in 3rd place with Antonio Bianchi behind him, and Bianchi right now not really able to get any closer than a 2nd at the moment, staying relatively close. But I would suspect the number 17 driver here right now will be thinking to himself, what can I do to perhaps bring this gap down a little bit more? Well, the idea would be here he needs to try and put some pressure on Rolls. Alternatively, the plan B would be to try and think a little bit more about strategy. As we had a spin at the turn 1 for Shahi Zaher as he's trying to find his way past Peterson. So I think that's all come undone for Zaher, and now he will be under threat of essentially losing time to Carlos Balanas, who will try and close up as quickly as he can. Albeit Carlos Balanas, by comparison, a bit further back. You'll see him in the rear of the picture very shortly. In fact, that was not him in the rear of the picture. That was a different car. It was your 18th place runner, Sergei Proc, you briefly saw. Now, his car has been repaired after losing its rear wing with a contact from Gareth McAllister. And Carlos Balanas right now in 16th place here. And there's a lot more work to be done, and indeed that's been a bit of a frustrating one after a reasonable start. Still, as he does have the race leader coming through, blue flags being waved there, and Adam Merchant will sneak his way past. And will your race leader right now absolutely run off for the canter here, leading by 8 seconds or so over Finley Fitzsimmons. And as Fitzsimmons runs a bit wide coming out to turn number 9 for what we're hearing on our ear, Fitzsimmons on the charge. But of course, he has to worry about the fact he cannot afford those off tracks. They already came back to bite him in race number 1 with the post-race time penalty. And right now for your number 16 driver, he's done a brilliant job coming all the way through from 13th to 2nd thus far. He's got one more place to try and close down. If things were to finish as they currently stand, well, with Merchant taking the win, in both races. Finley Fitzsimmons only taking what would be the points for second place in this race, and Elliot Court will, of course, add into his second place from race number 1 with potentially a 5th place from this one. Of course, there's still time to tell as to what exactly is going to happen. The big theory would be that effectively you would see the top 3 being led by Elliot Court going into the final round. Adam Merchant would squeeze ahead or be level with Finley Fitzsimmons, but they'd all be separated within a 10-point margin of each other. It would be close going into the season finale, so therefore it's all still to play for. But still trying to make the play here. Shahiza Harris, he's caught back up to Peterson into the pit lane. Has come Brick, Ramos and McAllister. They're all in. Craig Brick having some repair work done to his car. Meanwhile, Ramos and McAllister, they've just gone for the tyre change. And well, by coming in so early, I wonder right now whether they've decided if they were on wets and we've misunderstood what strategy they're on. Well, hold the phone on that one, because meanwhile, Johnston Brown to hold Pearson off here. He's not had the best of runs through the S's, and Stonebrough there just holding to his guns. Inside lines every step of the way through these corners if he can, and in the end, Peterson understeers wide due to dirty air and a poor line, and that's going to enable Zuhair to get back ahead. So Stonebrough right now really being the cork in the proverbial bottle. And remember that these two for Arrive and Drive, they have gone on to what we believe is a slick tyre for the rest of the race, and they'll be hoping that they're able to manage it. The problem they have, of course, is the fact they've got to go the best part of what will be 15 laps on the tyre, whereas normally you would only expect them to do around 12 to 13 laps. So pound the way onwards, well, it's going to be run past here by what is Zuhair. Stonebrough in the end does not have the speed to counteract with the slipstream, and the Arrive and Drive racing drivers absolutely mob Stonebrough and move ahead. So Stonebrough drops down to 12th, Zuhair now up to 10th, and Peterson up to 11th, and behind we do have Carlos Balanos and Gareth McAllister battling, as these two do sit a lap down, effectively now on the leader, who's passed them and is already up into his turn 14. But McAllister here is going to make his way on the inside here, and Carlos Balanos right now, I do not think will have a response. But one, the upside, of course, with these challenging conditions, the fact we have had track temperature drop quite significantly, as we do show you the weather on the right-hand side of your screen. We have an ambient at 20 degrees centigrade, but a track temperature at 90 degrees centigrade. With the rain falling, well, it is a double-edged sword for slick runners, because if it rains too much, you start to see standing water form on the circuit, and that leads to the phenomenon of aquaplaning, which of course, as the name entails, essentially where the car sits on top of a plane of water and slides along. But the aim of the game is, with the slick tyre, you need to keep it warm in these wet conditions in order to be able to keep the grip levels. And this circuit right now definitely drying, even though we've still got the dark cloud over the circuit. But the point being here that with the circuit being cooler and also light patches of water being on the circuit, what it can do is actually help to cool the slick tyre down, and in doing so, keeping those temperatures down, it may help in just maintaining the life of the tyre for longer. So Arrive and Drive may have actually achieved a trick with this one, albeit of course they do have the tyre having to go the longest, as we have had Felipe Ramos and Gareth McAllister both tow into the pit lane. Not quite sure what's happened between them, as we do take a quick look back, ladies and gentlemen, to immediately find out. And well, here was Felipe Ramos parked up in the wall there, so we see the start of it, but can we see the end of it, I wonder? And I think we can. We go back to what is lap number 10 earlier on. So this was the pair fighting, Ramos and Balanas, coming in towards the corner, and in the end, there's a big snap loose there from Felipe Ramos, losing it into the barrier cover through COTA curve, and just too much aggression on the outside line where there was still a little bit of water standing. Meanwhile, for Gareth McAllister, what exactly happened to him, we do wonder. And well, here's the replay of McAllister's car. Oh, goodness me, on pit entry there, he's got into the barrier. We go back a little bit earlier on this. We do apologise for it being out of sequence, but coming down in towards turn number 19, and in the as he made his way out the corner, decided to quickly come into the pit, and in the end, it carried so much speed in and hit the barrier. My goodness, they're not a clean pit entry whatsoever. And right now, definitely having to exit the car and tow it down to his pit lane spot, given the damage that the whole rear of the car had collapsed. But back to your live racing we come, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, well, more laps to be accrued, more time ticking on down here, albeit I think they are going to get the full race distance in. Even the fact we haven't seen a safety car, although we have seen a couple of incidents, but everyone, for the most part, running as best they can. We have lost 3 cars in this race, Felipe Ramos. Also, we've lost Craig Brick and Leo Dobar, but otherwise we still have 16 runners at this time. But Gareth McAllister's car, understandably, having to go through significant repairs, and we do wonder whether McAllister will be coming back to this race, and whether it's all going to be over, because normally once you do have a collapse of suspension, it is over at that point. We have no fast repairs in this series. This series is purely what is, you have to try and keep the car repaired and absolutely in tip-top condition. If you pick up damage, you get it repaired in the pit lane normal time, or alternatively, that's your race. But as Matt Strong there completely losing the run through turn number 12 into 13, well, you can see them trying to get back together in INCA Salsa race. He gets it pointed back in the straight and narrow, but for Matt Strong today, definitely proven to be a bit of a difficult one. Well, in 14th right now, hoping to pick up 2 more places and maybe find some points from this race. Never give up, to be fair. You never know what's going to happen until the very end, although he does lose 13th there to Carlos Balinas, also a lap down with him. But all the battles have spread to a degree as we look to Jace Mayer, who are currently only 1.2 seconds ahead of Robert Nobles, you see in the rear of the picture. So Mayer right now does have a little bit of pressure building on him as we get into the second half of this race. A lot of your leaders yet to pit, all deciding to stay out at the moment and all opt in to essentially just run this race. And I think where they might have gambled and potentially starting on the slicks, that gamble has now paid off. But of course, launching on the start-finish straight to head up towards turn number 1, that's where the difficulty lies. Starting a slick tyre on a wet circuit is nowhere near easy, at least for a lot of wheel spin, and you really have to try and be smart about trying to get the car rolling. But meanwhile, as we look from one MSR Purple car to another, well, the reason we look to Mayer's teammate of Fitzsimmons is because now he has taken the fastest lap of the race, at least on that one for a brief moment. But of course, Adam Merchant is trying to respond. Both drivers right now swapping lap times if it's going out of style, albeit Adam Merchant was quicker in the previous lap. But the reason it's not counted as the fastest lap is because of the fact he did pick up an off-track along the way, and that invalidates it. But Finney Fitzsimmons right now on a mission here, as we do see some light wet patches still running through the SS sequence there of turns 2 through to 7. It's very small, however, and with the occasional little drop of rain perhaps falling on our cameras. But right now, at least, as much of the circuit is looking dark and brooding, it is not brewing up a storm, at least for now. Should the rain come back, however, well, it would definitely be interesting, because this might be one of those races where drivers have to try and survive the opening stint long enough to then potentially go to the wet tyre towards the very end, should the rain be on the radar. And that's always going to be in the minds of so many, as meanwhile, Sergei Prok, he's at a moment, because that rear right tyre is not rolling at all. That car is crawling, and Sergei Prok right now trying to get himself a throw, but I think this is not going anywhere. And I think right now he might want to consider putting it off the road and towing it at this rate, because for Sergei Prok, that car definitely not in a happy place whatsoever, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that it is going to tow to the pit shortly. But Mayer and Nobles, these two, and still keeping each other company, as Robert Noble's on a mission to try and close him down. Prok has just towed to the pit, and we'll get a replay of what exactly happened to him when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But I think he's had a big moment with one of the curbs coming through the S's. Alternatively, he's hit a curb and then gone to a wall, because the rear right of that car had completely dropped to the floor. But as a new fastest lap comes in, Adam Merchant now 41.470. So Merchant is responding to the pace of Fitzsimmons, and they're exchanging lap times, and with an 8-second gap between them at the moment, well, Merchant does have plenty of time to play into. But of course, one small mistake and that lead could be completely eradicated from this race. Nobles, meanwhile, still trying to find a way back versus Jace Mayer. The gap opening up from what was 9 tenths all the way to 1.4 seconds there, coming down the back stretch and in towards turns 12, 13 and 14. And that might be a sign of the fact that Nobles is more confident in the first half a lap, where Mayer is more confident in the second half a lap, although it is really going to be give to take between these two, and we suspect it'll be like this for a long time. Albeit rolling his way through COTA curve. Right now, Jace Mayer, that's the corner he's not as comfortable with, is turning 17 and 18, losing 3 tenths there to Robert Nobles, and it really is right now, it's coming down to corner by corner, apex by apex, as to which one of these drivers is the quicker. I think they're equally matched over the distance, but there's different spots on the lap where they're gaining and losing time to each other. Meanwhile, Elliot Rolls, he has opened up a little bit more of a gap to Antonio Bianchi. The gap now up to 2.1 seconds versus the INCA X51C driver. So Rolls will feel a little bit safer now running in third place in the class. But as they make the way down, we can understand the fact the number 5 driver will not become complacent here. And, well, of course, the DDK Racing, a third and what would be a 5th right now, would see their team's championship lead extended versus MSR Purple, despite Finney Fitzsimmons finishing second in this one, theoretically, and Jace Mayer potentially taking the 7th place. So the team's championship, it would definitely be coming down to the 2 teams after today if the results stand from this race based on how they currently are, and then we'd understand it would be advantage DDK Racing as they'll be looking to try and take that crown home as of Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time. So that's a little bit of intrigue there. As meanwhile, we've still got a bit of intrigue as to what exactly happened to Sergei Prok, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back in time to find out exactly what happened. So this was your driver making his way through the SS sequence, and behind him, oh, a small prang there. And, well, who exactly did make contact with him is the question, and the answer is, we're trying to understand, was that Antonio Bianchi's car? Yes, we think it was Antonio Bianchi, and I don't think Bianchi would have felt that, but Prok definitely feeling the consequences, just tyre to tyre there, and in the end, at that small prang, just knocking the rear right suspension loose of Sergei Prok car, and in the end, it all fell apart. Can we get the on board from Antonio Bianchi? We can. This is what it looked light on board from him. And we're in and trying to cover through. Oh, such a high-speed impact. But to be fair, Bianchi would not have even felt it probably. But in the end, the damage definitely being felt for Sergei Prop, and a frustrating one there for both drivers, understandably. And will Antonio Bianchi, I think it'll be a call to the stewards room after the race. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live racing. And there's the rain. It's coming back again for a brief moment, albeit it's not really visible on the camera, to be fair. It looks so it is very fine drizzle, and when it's sunny, it is very visible on the camera, just like that. So it really is right now from part and parcel of circuit where you can see it. We can see a little bit more rain on the camera coming down in towards turn number 12. And all the drivers right now pushing on, but it is literally little bits of spittle, if you will, rather than anything else. And as Adam Merchant makes his way into the pit lane, well, I suspect he's taking the car as far as he can on the opening fuel, and indeed as far as the tyres want to go. And now with only a third of the race to go by the time he leaves the pit lane going on to lap 17, I think he feels though now it's all going to be a straightforward one to the end. Finley Fitzsimmons comes on in 7 seconds behind. In fact, it was 7 seconds exactly, and Merchant already on his way back out. They're going back to another set of slick tyres here, and well, I think slicks are going to be the aim of the game here. I don't think we're going to see enough rain to really force the wet tyres to come out of hiding, but never say never, to be fair, as meanwhile, while Arturo Mayorga carrying on, but behind him by 6 seconds is Shahi Zahair. And he's the man you need to watch right now, as we do Nick Peterson, his teammate. Although Peterson has had a bit of an error that's seen him go down the order. In fact, Peterson has made his way into the pit lane once again. So Peterson has come on in. Zahair has stayed out. He pitted, of course, on lap number 6. And right now, Shahi Zahair trying to keep this alive all the way to the end to see if he can gain all the time just by simply making the plan, which is swap from wets to dries and therefore do it as early as possible. And now to not make any mistakes, because those tyres are definitely going to feel warmed down. And also the fuel in the car is going to be quite restricted. He might have to do a lot of lifting and coasting here if he wants to try and make this one-stop strategy work. Otherwise, he will be forced onto an unfortunate two-stop, which is what nobody wants to do if they can help it. Fabian Sanchez leaves the pit lane. And as he does so, he'll rejoin the racing in 6th place. And, well, we are really seeing everyone come in. All of your leaders have made the way in at the end of lap 16. So they've gone as far as they can. Jace Mann leaves his pit box, and then Robert Nobles will follow him. So these two still pretty much close as they were coming into the pit. And the gap between the two of them leaving the pit lane is going to be 1.4 seconds. So it has not changed at all right now. Nobles is still having to give chase. Arturo Mayorga a long way back by comparison, but yet to pit as he goes on to another lap. So Mayorga right now staying out there. And what we believe he has not pitted, although that could be a glitch on our data screens that we do have, which you guys and girls can't see. But as Arturo Mayorga stays out there right now, we're definitely trying to go the long distance here. And looking at good in the 55, but he's got to keep it together and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. But as we do see lap number 18 coming on through for what is our leaders, on lap number 17 for Jace Mann and Robert Nobles right now. Well, these two closer than they have been. In fact, Jace Mann not having the best of runs through the S's. And, well, the rain has come down a little bit. We have actually seen a topping up of what is the level of water through the S's sequence of bends. But right now, these drivers, well, both still staying together. But understandably, this is now getting very temperamental. As meanwhile, it's brilliant sunshine for a brief moment at turn number 19 and turn 20 as Antonio Bianchi and Elliot Court come towards their end of their 17th lap. So right now it's really confusing conditions here because it's not raining enough to really encourage the wet tyre to come out, but it is raining enough to make the slick tyre not feel 100% comfortable, and it's particularly at certain points on lap, perhaps on the more tricky ones such as the S's sequence, the high speed combination of corners that open up the lap where you want the sunshine to make sure the circuit is as dry as possible, whereas towards the end of the lap where there is the sunshine, you perhaps actually don't mind there not being as much sunshine there. And well, Elliot Court here getting close to Bianchi as we ride aboard, and this is the onboard that really gives you a sense of the conditions they're driving through. And we say it is light rain, but it is coming down continuously. And Court here right now trying to find a way in, but the problem's going to be he's going to get very close here as they come out of the corner. But he gets too close for comfort there, and Court had to back off entirely through risking making contact with Antonio Bianchi otherwise. And well, that's the confidence he's got in the car. He has got the speed to go on the attack. There is no doubt about it, but he's got to catch him at the right point in the lap to get the job done. As meanwhile off camera, look out my contact booth window, and Arturo Mayorga does come into the pit lane, so he's decided now the job's been done. He's got to see where that's going to put him, as we do see that Elliot Court having a full amount of overtake left to use. Oh my good lord, drives up the inside there Antonio Bianchi, and will full confidence there. Bianchi braking very early, and Court in the end gets it stopped in the nick of time, but as he goes onto the brakes here for turn number 13, Bianchi trying to come back. There was some sense in braking so early for Bianchi. He was trying to play it cautious, and in the end Elliot Court, he can't go for caution here. He needs every point he can in order to be able to try and defend his championship championship crown come spa in a week's time. But meanwhile, Bianchi here staying with him. Elliott Court does move to fourth, but what a send from Elliott Court in the end. From so far back, the speed differential was absolutely gigantic, and in the end, Court moves into fourth, and now he's got to consolidate it. Meanwhile, Arturo Mayorga, after going the longest there, everybody going 17 laps before pitting. Well, absolutely impressive there. He has moved to 8th place, all the way from 16th at the start of this race. And right now, Mayorga definitely, of course, one of his best performances of the season, if not his season best, with Nick Peterson and Shahid Zahair swapping places with Zahair coming in for his second stop of the day. So in the end, the Arrive and Drive team have had to make the safety stop for both drivers. And, well, that's cost them some time, but still now they'll be able to go to the very end comfortably. Hold up, that's Finley Fitzsimmons into the grass. That's on the exit of turn number 10. Has he been caught out by the corner? Because now, well, he's got a bit of a gap before third place comes through. So Finley Fitzsimmons is safe from Elliott Rolls. The gap was the best part of none other, and I do believe at 22 seconds, but now that gap has come all the way down. It's down to 9 seconds at least, although I think that gap is going to come down even quicker. Yes, it does. And in fact, the gap now down to 9.5 as Elliott Rolls, the DDK Racing driver, will know that Fitzsimmons has had something go wrong, because that gap has absolutely been divided. Well, as Elliott Court tries to catch up here, DDK Racing right now, well, third and fourth in this one. This is going to give them a huge advantage going into the season, providing the Teams Championship over MSR Purple. Things are coming up good here for DDK Racing, and they'll be feeling as though the confidence is there. It's growing. And we'll keep in mind, of course, the fact that MSR Purple are your defending champions in the Teams Championship. Right now, they will be losing it, potentially at Belgium, if DDK Racing can bring this together and indeed then just have a good enough result to seal the deal next time out. But as we do see our drivers all cooling on down, nobody really batting at the moment, we're going to take a look back at what exactly happened to Finley Fitzsimmons. And here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen. And this was Fitzsimmons making his way out turn number 10, ran wide, rejoined. In fact, that was turn number 9. Then at 10, hit the apex curb, and the rear of the car just came entirely loose on him there. A tiny touch for the apex curb and the sausage on it, and in the end, it just unsettled the car. And with the track surface, they've been quite wet now on these slick tyres. That was it for Finley Fitzsimmons. As easy as that, a mistake. But thankfully for him, of course, one that he's been able to recover from, and he hasn't lost second place. He's just lost a lot of time. Well, back to your live racing we go. And well, as we come back, there's still more time in this race. There's still going to be the best part of what will be another 4 laps after the current one. And there's your race leader, Adam Merchant, who right now, in a postcode of his own, well, he doesn't need to push too hard anymore. But understandably, he needs to keep pushing if he wants to keep the heat in the tyres and therefore keep the pace flowing. So it is a little bit of a contradictory thing in the fact that whilst he could potentially back off if it was dry today, well, right now he can't afford to back off because those slick tyres will need to be kept warm if he wants to have the grip levels all the way to the end. One thing he can potentially do, if he feels like it, if he feels the slick tyres are proving risky to drive on, he can come into the pit and put on a fresh set of tyres. He does have a 20-second gap to Finley Fitzsimmons, which we believe would be just about enough to do it. It would be close, but he could gamble on that, and of course he would have perhaps the optimum tyre for the remainder of the race. So it may be a fault, but you'll notice there as he touches the curb on entry into turn 19. A small mistake there for Adam Merchant as well. Right now the Squid Game Racing team will be on the radio to him saying, Adam, don't touch the curbs. They are getting wetter and wetter. As meanwhile, Finley Fitzsimmons has had another mistake. Coming out of turn 16, he's got it wrong. And right now, as we do see there, Arturo Mayorga trying to unlap himself. Elliott Rolls, well, he's carrying on, and Elliott Court's caught up to him here. It could all still be in the balance between these drivers. Mistakes happening as there goes Court. Court goes round on camera at turn number 16. And much like Fitzsimmons, it goes on around. Can he get it turned back? He can, but Antonio Bianchi will take that full place off him right now. And does anybody opt to gamble to go to the wet tyre this late on in the race? They'll lose the best part of at least 20, if not 25 seconds in the pit lane. But what they may theoretically gain at this point is plenty more grip to work with in the remaining stages. And well, who could do it? Who's got nothing to lose? Well, Elliott Court's got everything to lose now that he's had that spin, but you would imagine that's why Adam Merchant may not have anything to lose. In the fact he's now got a 26.5 second gap. The only fault is, as the sun does come out at what is the back end of the circuit, this will be helpful, is in the fact that what if by doing so you get onto a wet set of tyres that you absolutely rip to shreds if the circuit does dry up right at the end? Well, it's a gamble, but you could drive in the wet for at least 2-3 laps and you would turn it into an unconventional slick. You would ripple the tread off of it by overheating the tyre. But as we're seeing more and more retirements with several drivers being involved in incidents, including Sanchez, Nobles, Balanas, Paroc adding to their list of names, including alongside McAllister, Ramos, Brick and Delmar from earlier. Well, 11 remaining right now, and these conditions proving so challenging for everyone, but it is keeping everything on a knife edge here all the way to the finish. Man, Tony Bianchi right now, he is essentially going to be on course to bring on home what would be the fourth place that he thought he took in the sprint. We've already got upgraded to a third place finish, and Antonio Bianchi will be on course for another one of his best results of the season in terms of doubling up in those top 5 finishes and a podium with it today as well. But the gap to none other than Elliott Rolls, 9 seconds at the moment. He's going to need Rolls to have a bit of a nightmare moment if he wants to make some magic happen here, but you never know what can happen. Never say it's over until it's over, because that checker flag is the only time when we will be calling the race closed, because we've still got 8 minutes left of this race in terms of time. We are going to see the full race distance here, and with 3 laps to go, Adam Merchant right now, they are lapping 10 seconds a lap on average, slower compared to the fastest times we've seen here today. Well, right now, Adam Merchant just needing to hold it together. But look at the spray off the back of the cars. Finney Fitzsimmons is into the pit, and he's absolutely struggling into the pit lane there. That pit lane will have more water than the circuit, given the fact that, of course, nobody drives down the pit lane if they can help it. Meanwhile, Shahi's ahead goes around the outside of Arturo Mayorga. He's going to take what will be 7th place. There was ahead. And we're coming out the final corner. That is on to the start-finish line stretch. Well, right now, for what is Mayorga losing a place he's gained, but I think Arturo Mayorga just trying to stay out of trouble. As meanwhile, Elliott Rolls, he's going to be passing Philly Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons, of course, going to what we believe was a new set of tyres, potentially going onto the wet tyre. You can see the tread lines in that tyre just about on camera. And will Fitzsimmons decide it's not worth staying on the slick tyre, even for a couple more laps? I think it's the right call for Fitzsimmons. He's got too much to lose by not doing this. And what you can see immediately is he now starts to get that wet tyre switched on. The fact he's able to hold off Rolls initially through the S's sequence, and that gap is becoming pronounced. He will overheat the tyre on the back end of that, given it's warmer there and there's less water, but right now that wet tyre is going to be absolutely swimming compared to the slick tyre by comparison. And I think for Fitzsimmons it has been the right call as he comes down to the braking zone for turn number 11, but as he does so right now, Rolls staying there with him just about. And of course, he's got to be so careful. Corner exit, touch that exit curve. That's going to cost him traction. That's going to cost him 3/10 there. And Rolls right now, he can't touch the curbs. Nobody can really touch him, even on the wet tyre. But of course, naturally in your mind, given the fact you've been touching those curbs all the way through the first half of the race, you've got to suddenly discipline yourself not to do so. As meanwhile, drag race here between Bianchi and Court heading down towards turn number 12. And Elliott Court at this point on the inside. Well, a lot of spray coming up there, getting ready to go onto the brakes. And for Elliott Court, up the inside he goes. And Bianchi's going to have to let that one go. He's got no real response at this moment. Meanwhile, Finney Fitzsimmons losing the rear through turns 14 and 15. And in the end, around the outside goes Elliott Rolls. He just about avoids being collected. My good lord. And well, there's still time for Elliott Court to catch up to Fitzsimmons then based on that. And Bianchi's right behind right now. This race is absolutely on the nails here. And meanwhile, as he goes round, Elliott Court goes spinning on round at turn number 16. I don't believe it. And the championship leading contender right now, well, this is going to turn things completely in the opposite direction. As meanwhile, Adam Merchant, well, he's crawling around right now. Merchant is struggling out there as Finney Fitzsimmons is back into the pit lane. And I suspect Fitzsimmons is into the pit lane for a drive-through penalty, perhaps for instant points. And if so, Fitzsimmons' race right now goes backwards. He heads on along. And as he does so here, is he going to pull into his pit box? He is. So is it going to be another tyre change here for Fitzsimmons and the team? It's absolute pandemonium for MSR Purple. Yes, new tyres are going on. Rolls will cover through to second, of course. And then Antonio Bianchi moves up into third place here. They've still got 2 laps remaining in this one. Elliott Court's into the pit lane as well as he heads on down, but for Court this is purely a drive-through penalty by looks of things, but this might bring him a lot closer to Fitzsimmons. Either way, you could not make this up. It is completely off script at the moment in terms of what's happening. And meanwhile, Adam Merchant here, well, he's only got what is half of this lap and then one more to go. Can Merchant hold on here to be what would be an absolutely incredible set of back-to-back wins? And arguably this might be the hardest drive he's had to go through. Yes, he's had races where he's had to do more battling, but right now he's battling with the circuit, he's battling with the weather and with slick shot tyres, and as he makes his way through COTA curve, all he's got to do is hold on for one more lap. But you can see how much he's struggling. There is no speed in that car as he comes on through, but does he come in right now and decide to put the wets on for the final lap? And well, in the end, no, he doesn't, as he tiptoes his way. In fact, yes, he does come into the pits. He does not want to risk it, and it's the right call. Surely with 46 seconds advantage over everybody else, he may as well come in. He doesn't need to risk this as the final lap gets underway, but it starts in the pit lane for Adam Merchant and it will finish on the road surely as he comes on down. Elliott Rolls right now, he'll know that Merchant is into the pit lane. He will be told that by the team over the radio, but they are nowhere near close enough. They've got to hope that Adam Merchant at this point has the worst possible outlap on a set of wet tyres that we will see here. And well, right now it seems to be all going right for Adam Merchant. They have put the tyres on the car. Here he goes up the hill. And as he does so, well, right now he's got to get those wet tyres switched on, and he's just got to be careful with them. Of course, they are made to go in these conditions, but even the wet tyres, they do need to be looked after at the very start of their stintage. As always, it can be risky. As meanwhile, Elliott Court making his way in towards turns 12 and 13, still struggling out there after the drive-through penalty. He is on slicks, it should be pointed out, and after that drive-through penalty, he's lost the tyre temperature, and the circuit is going against him. It's absolute madness here. And right now, Court, where he does have a 1 minute gap. Oh, as he goes round, it goes to the cross again of Elliott Court. Surely not. Surely this isn't all going to fall apart. He's got one more lap to do after this, unless he gets lapped by the leader. And all right now, Shahi Zahair's yet to be lapped as well. Zahair's just a little bit up the road from Adam Merchant here. Antonio Bianchi's into the pit lane, and that's to put wet set tyres on as well. Everyone's having to go to wets right in. It's too wet to finish the race on the slicks right now. Oh my good lord. And well, as Bianchi makes his way onwards, Finley Fitzsimmons stays on. And he's going to take that third place back, but he makes his way all around. Well, the MSR Purple driver right now, knowing he's catching up to Elliott Rolls very rapidly. Rolls is struggling. He's on slicks. He can't keep it together. Fitzsimmons takes second place back. And for Fitzsimmons, he's got to stay within track limits. So I suspect he has got a lot of instant points to his name, given the spins earlier on. And therefore, he can't afford to pick up any more. Otherwise, it would be a post-race time penalty. And suddenly, what would look like a miraculous drive from 13th to 2nd would all be apart once again. But it's not falling apart for him right now as he makes his way down the back stretch here, absolutely flying at this late stage of the race. Adam Merchant, meanwhile, taking an easy look at the puddle starting to form here. Anybody who's on slicks in this final lap right now is going to struggle massively when they get to the stadium section. And well, Merchant makes his way through COTA curve here. Only 3 corners, now 2. Then it'll be 1. And come the end of it all, the job will surely be done. So he makes his way down through 19 in towards turn number 20 for Adam Merchant. Well, in the end, he's played it safe throughout the entire day. And after a comfortable win in the sprint, he's going to make it back-to-back wins here at the circuit in the Americas. He will be right in contention of the championship at Spa-Francorchamps. What a win there for the Squid Gang Racing driver, keeping it all together when everybody else seemed to lose their cool. But he has been as cool as a cucumber today. Finley Fitzsimmons, meanwhile, he'll make his way for the last couple of quarters, and in the end, it's been up, it's been down, it's been around, and after the frustration of the conclusion of the sprint race, Fitzsimmons will take second place here in the final race of the day, and it will mean he is able to stay right toward the front of the championship at the very end as he crosses that line. We will then see Elliott Rolls tiptoe his way on through. He is still on slicks, but he is going to survive this race, whereas the top 2 are on wet. But in the end, Elliott Rolls will finish this race in 3rd place. And he has to literally force the car around the corner. It doesn't want to turn, but he gets there in the end. And Rolls, in the end, will take over 3rd place to DDK Racing. Important points in the team championship. And in Antonio Bianchi right now, still trying to survive this last lap. Several drivers are, as meanwhile, Arturo Jorgen's coming home in 7th place, ahead of Jace Mayer and Nick Peterson, with Matt Strong taking home 10th place, and Johnston Braz is finishing the race now, and he will finish in 11th place here, 2 laps down, but well done to him for seeing the finish line and picking up some valuable points. But then we will still have to see Antonio Bianchi and coming on home here in the number 17. Can he make it? Well, right now, the car literally snaking on around here. That is how much water has accumulated. And in the end, as he keeps it nice and tight to the inside, lets the car run deep intentionally there to avoid the water on the apex. And Antonio Bianchi will come on home in 4th place in it. It's been a struggle, but he just about makes it with Elliott Court round off the top 5. And the man who could have been championship leader comfortably going into the season finale will now know that if he has a championship lead, it is a marginal one at best as he comes across the line and the car skids to the barrier. The front wing comes off there, and meanwhile Shahi Zahair will come home in 6th place, and what a race it's been for the Arrive and Drive team. But in the end, he will take a top 6 spot, even though in the end he had to come into the pits twice at least compared to everyone else, and his teammate, of course, Nick Peterson, finishing 9th a lap down. But what an ending, ladies and gents. But you could not have predicted it. It was absolute chaos because of the weather. And what seemed to be the right tyre of the slick, it was the right tyre for 22 laps. And then suddenly, will the heavens open up right at the end? You could go a 23rd lap, but you couldn't do the 24th. And those who did, well done to them for doing so. But the wet tyre was needed right at the end. But of course, the circuit of the Americas really proving why today is the circuit of the World Championships. As we cool on down, and as we do, we take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely dramatic conclusion to our 24-lap feature race in round 8 of season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series presented by INCA Salsa on the iRacing Simulator platform, Adam Merchant took victory, making it back-to-back wins for Squid Game Racing by 25.5 seconds over Finley Fitzsimmons. The MSR Purple driver definitely doing everything he needed to today to keep the championship hunt well and truly alive, but we do have a three-way fight at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and we couldn't ask for better, because Merchant, with 2 wins, has put himself right back into contention. Fitzsimmons has stayed live at the 2nd place after the dismal end to race number 1, and well then, you have to look all the way to 5th place for Elliot Court there, who after a brilliant drive to none other than 2nd place in race number 1, and 5th place in this one means that right now that championship leader is hoping for, it's not quite been done. But between Court and Fitzsimmons, in third, it was Elliot Rolls there for DDK Racing, and there's a recurring theme here for those of you who are interested in statistics, the fact that whilst we don't have the exact numbers, every time we have seen it go wrong for Elliot Court in a feature race, we have typically seen Elliot Rolls finish on the podium of some description. A bit of an odd one, that one. I'm sure we can crunch the numbers at some point, but Elliot Rolls right now always seems in the feature. If it goes wrong for his teammate, he finds a podium straight away. But still, the Scotsman there will be grateful. He won't be asking questions about that. And in the end, it was 4th place for Antonio Bianchi for INCA X51C, ahead of Elliot Court there, who completed that top 5. And Shahid's there, taking 6th there for Arrive and Drive Racing. And good, his race started on the wets, then went to dries early on. Well, the fact they had to make an extra pit stop for Arrive and Drive, it worked out in the end. He was able to survive to 6th, ahead of Arturo Mayorga, who in the end finished a lap down there for Inca Chips. But to be fair to him, what a performance, starting in 16th place, bringing home that 7th. Couldn't quite make it at 6th place. He almost managed to, but still the Inca Chips driver won't be too upset about that, because that's going to be some huge points coming to him at a valuable stage. Jace Mannion had to take 8th, a lap down for MSR Purple, but still good points for the team, keeping their hopes of defending the championship alive to a degree, although DDK Racing really will be the favourites going to Belgium. And then Nick Peterson took 9th place for Arrive and Drive Racing, 2 laps down, just ahead of Matt Strong for INCA Salsa Racing, who didn't give up, and after starting from the pit lane due to a technical issue with the car on the grid, he was able to complete the top 10. It was also 2 laps down to Johnston Rowe, picks up some valuable points, and then Fabian Sanchez, well, whilst he did retire with 6 laps to go, he will be classified as a finisher, we do believe, and therefore he'll bring home the final point. Robert Noble's unfortunately pointless from this one, but the MSR Green drive definitely gave us a bit of heroics to watch in the early stage of the race, pushing on hard there, trying to chase down his rivals, but still it all went wrong for him, as it did for Carlos Balanasi and for Raccoon GP 9 laps adrift. It was 12 laps down there to Sergei Prot, who'll be the first of our classified non-finishers, and it was also the same there, 14 laps down for Gareth McAllister, as it was for Craig Brick, Felipe Ramos, and Leo Del Mar, with Del Mar, of course, coming off the worst after the open lap incident coming down the hill from turn number 1 in the 3-wide pinch. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our racing here today at the Circuit of the Americas in Texas, and it has definitely delivered. But with that, of course, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at League Zero, or just know a little bit more about our Formula Series, well, for all that and everything in between, we do of course strongly recommend that you do head to our website. That is at www.leaguezero.net, and as our website appears on screen now, where it is the beating heart of League Zero. Indeed, much like Wikipedia is arguably the encyclopedia of all knowledge for the world, well, here the League Zero website is the encyclopedia of all knowledge for this series, and you've got everything available to you, whether it's the rules and regulations, the Hall of Fame, the current schedule, alternatively, of course, all the standings from current and previous seasons. You can find it all there, and also you can even register to get yourself on the grid if you're looking for some open wheel racing action in the Premier Series, hosted from the North American continent. But of course, it is available to anybody around the world, and we have drivers from all over the globe racing on a weekly basis. And right at the centre there, if you do want to join the community and get to know the drivers and the admins and the staff, you've got the access there to join the official Discord. But as well as that, we also do want to give a big shout out, of course, to our title sponsor, INCA Salsa, who present this series on a weekly basis. And if you're a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than INCA Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you'll never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you'll ever have, do head to INCA Salsa's official website at shop-inca-salsa.myshopify.com today, and you can have the taste of the very finest salsa out there in the business. I'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our additional sponsors for this series, including MSR Performance Engineering and Team Goon Squad. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we pack up our bags. It is our final visit to the US of A for this season, and next time out for the 200th round of racing ever in the League Zero Formula Series, we will be concluding the championship campaign for season 17 at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, the venerable Belgian circuit that is a staple of any open-wheel racing series, ranging all the way from Formula 4 to Formula 1. And how exactly do we head there? Well, in the Drivers' Championship, it will be a three-way fight between the defending champion of Finley Fitzsimmons, well, in fact, not the defending champion, the two-time champion, we should say, of Finley Fitzsimmons, the two-time champion of Adam Merchant, and the defending champion trying to make it 2 times for Elliot Court. It is going to be tight between the 3 of them, and we'll wait to see whether Elliot Court can add himself further to the Hall of Fame, or whether one of our 2-time champions will become a 3-time champion. As for the Teams Championship, well, right now, DDK Racing, they are on course potentially to bring on home that maiden title and try to take it away from the defending champions of MSR Purple. But will they be able to do so? Because the advantages with them, they are the favourites. But like today has shown, just because you are the favourite doesn't mean it is all guaranteed. Well, all the racing will occur on Thursday, the 5th of March, 2026. But come join us as if it were live on Friday, the 6th of March, next time out, ladies and gentlemen. And we will be bringing the curtain down in Belgium. But until then, we have been the League Zero Formula Series. And I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning to a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, we're to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.